All right, let's see if this is working. Because we haven't done a live stream in a little while. I have no idea if this is all just going to collapse on my face as soon as I try and do it. Oh boy. We're now in this wonderful limbo where I'm waiting to see myself on the other window. It looks like it's working. Alrighty, we'll just start rolling in and see how everyone's doing. The chat is kicking in, which is nice. Good to see people out in the chat. Good to see there's people watching. Oh my goodness. Like, that's what that guy looks like. That weird Scottish dude whose videos I've been watching on occasion throughout the year. What? Oh, this is going to be a long night. Actually, in keeping, thank you, Solid Reactor. We have audio and video. Fantastic. Actually, in keeping with Happy Pie, your real name. So I went out and got a whole bottle, plastic bottle, which isn't great, given, you know, if you know anything about Iron Brew, plastic bottles are low in the scale of quality. But yeah, we're here. Dave Thomas has joined us. Good evening, Dave. I hope you're doing, or good morning, good afternoon. I have no idea where you are in the world. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're all doing well, wherever you are. I'm having trouble opening this bottle of Iron Brew. There we go. So what's the gig? Do I have to just stay online until I've drank the whole thing? And by the end of it, I'm just like, thanks for watching, everybody. So I'm just sugared out my mind. All right. Here we go. Aidan Burns says, what's your favourite Iron Brew? Extra is my... You know what? I am actually a very big fan of Iron Brew Extra. I hate Diet Iron Brew. I've always hated it. Iron Brew Extra, I actually drink more often than not, but I live in England, so trying to get a bottle of Extra, there's only actually one supermarket nearby that actually does Iron Brew Extra. My local Tesco, which is where I got this, only does the full sugar stuff. But yeah, I tend to have a bottle of Extra in the house, but I drank it all a week or so ago. Just that. Dan Bob, good evening, sir/madam. So yeah, I just realized I'm wearing headphones, which I don't need because I can't hear you. I needed it actually just to make sure I could hear myself. And yeah. What is different with the Extra? So Extra is basically the kind of sugar-free equivalent. It's sort of, if anyone drinks Pepsi, there's like Pepsi Max, so Iron Brew Extra is like the Pepsi Max equivalent. But yeah, Aiden says that's outrageous. I think you need to move. You know what? This has been my burden for a decade now because I've lived in England for 10 years, which is a hell of a lot longer than I actually envisaged I would. But yeah, there you go. So yeah, getting, you know what, actually, so interestingly, this is going to be something, I love that we've immediately derailed this Q&A, but in Scotland, you can actually get Iron Brew in glass bottles, and glass bottles are still the primo, the best way to drink it. You don't find them down here. However, recently, what was it? The Iron Brew, or what was it? What was that? What's the year on it? The 1901. Which was like they did a special version of Iron Brew, which was, here's what it tasted like in 1901, because the recipes changed quite a bit. They started appearing in supermarkets down here on the shelves, and I lost my mind. I remember I was in, so funnily enough, I was in the supermarket with my partner, and I saw some of them on the shelf, and completely, without really thinking about it, without thinking about the fact it was like a Friday evening or a Friday afternoon or something, and there's kids and there's parents around, I was just like, fucking hell. And my partner's like, what? Iron Brew. And I immediately ran over and grabbed a couple of bottles. And then, yeah, I think I scared everybody in proximity as this very Scottish guy is just like, fuck, excited about Iron Brew. So there you go. Avian Overlord, it is evening for me. I'm not actually sure what it is for you, but I hope you're having a good one regardless. Just that Dan Bob, Pepsi Max is my go-to drink. It was actually also my go-to drink when I started dieting. I was quite unfit when I was in my first couple of years of university/college, and then I got in a lot better shape. Aiden, twice as many gingers are sacrificed in the making of extra. Oh yeah. Let's see. So yeah, that's my story. It's just me losing my mind when I get to see the Iron Brew that I never expect to see outside of Scotland, because you know here you get it in plastic bottles and that's about it. We've also got a little bit of another of Scottish tipple just to kind of tide me through. But that's all I'm pouring of that. I'm not going to, it's not like there's a bottle of whiskey and I'm just going to keep pouring it until that's finished and then I can finish the stream. No. It's never quite tasted the same ever since the sugar tax. For anyone who's not in the UK and you're not familiar with this, we have a sugar tax that's now levied against soft drinks. And as a result, the Iron Brew had to change the recipe because there was so much sugar in it. And to the point that there was like a scarcity drive and people were actually panicking and running around like trying to find the good Iron Brew before it ran out. And like you could buy it secondhand on like eBay and stuff, going on Craigslist, or the equivalent of Craigslist in the UK, which I guess is Gumtree, looking for the good stuff. Scuppy Pup, is it Jura? No, this isn't Jura. This is Monkey Shoulder, which is a blended malt whiskey, which my partner and I are quite fond of. I actually was kind of eyeing up. I bought a bottle of 12-year Macallan for my birthday, which was a few weeks ago, by my brother. And I was like, do I open it tonight? And then no, because actually I would sit with my partner and drink it. But I'm here with y'all instead. So that's what Avian Overlord for you. It's the afternoon. Gene Ultra, 11 a.m. Yes, it is 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the US. We're writing it out. It is now 7 p.m. here in the UK. And I'll be really terrified if anybody is from farther east, because you're staying up far too late to listen to me talk. But so far, yeah, we've actually got a nice little audience, and all I've been doing is talking about Iron Brew and a little bit about whiskey. And nothing about AI and or games. Oh. Good stuff. So yeah, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all keeping great. We're now, it's the end of the year, 2022. I mean, we put this event together, but hopefully you figured that out yourself. Many of you will be getting ready for the holiday season. In fact, I'm officially wrapping up. This is my last thing on my to-do list is tonight. After this, I am kind of putting my feet up going forward. And then I'm taking a break. We've got very short Christmas break here, and then my partner and I are on the road for a little bit, but it'll be good. And then we'll be back chilling for a day or two before we're back at work in January. Oh God. J Beat says, did you play Vampire Survivors? I started playing Vampire Survivors about 6 to 8 weeks ago. I think it was right before it came out on Game Pass. I was sort of like, oh no, actually it was when it came out on Game Pass. I was like, I keep hearing about this game. I should try it. I played it for about all of 5 minutes and went, damn it. And immediately went and bought it on Steam. And I've been playing it on my Steam Deck, which is not here. Must be upstairs. So yeah. Just that, Dan Bob. Feels really weird that it's already the end of 2022. I'm still waiting for the end of 2020, to be honest. Like, I've lost all sense of time. I genuinely often forget what year it is. I keep thinking it's 2021, actually. But yeah. Hang on. So yeah. What we'll do is we will have a full-blown Q&A in a little bit. I've already seen some questions coming in, but I do have the obligatory part of this where I do the review part, where this is super exciting because I actually prepare a presentation, and well, it's actually already here and it's ready to go. But we'll do that in a second. So yeah, what I do is I do a kind of end of year overview, talking about how the channels went this year, things that have went well and have not. Avian Overlord, I did see your comment there. I'm going to actually, they'll probably come back to that in a little bit as part of the overall Q&A part. Let's see. Phil Furian's given me some whiskey advice. I appreciate that. I'm going to copy and paste that stuff. Aiden, do you watch Code Bullet? No, I don't. I keep thinking I maybe should, but I don't. Funnily enough, interestingly, I'm watching less and less YouTube these days, which is kind of ironic given I'm making stuff on it. But there you go. Let's see. What happened to that Dino Crisis fan game that you posted on the community post? I'm not sure what game. Are you perhaps referring to the game? Are you perhaps referring to Deathground, which was the one I actually have been involved in, which is still in development? Which we can talk about that a little bit. Actually, I think it maybe comes up briefly at some point in the presentation. So, tell you what, let's just get right into it. So this is me I like to do my big kind of overview on how things have went this year, looking back on the videos that I've made, and also I'm going to show you some numbers, like how the channel has done, how the Patreon is done, and talk a little bit as well about how things are changing going forward. There's actually, patrons know a lot about this. I've been sharing a lot of stuff over in the Patreon part of the Discord server. In fact, there was a huge dump today, info dump, not any other kind of dump, where I was talking about how things are changing and some of the stuff that we're going to start seeing next year. So I'm quite excited it's still in a state of flux. I'm still putting it all together, which is also why video output has been a little quieter in the last month or two. And well, I was also ill. Sadly, I brought COVID home to the house about middle of November, and then both my partner and I tested positive, and it was a horrible mess. But thankfully, the worst of it is behind us. I think I've maybe got a slight tickle on the throat, but that's about it in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, we're just gonna power through. So let's get started. Actually, so this year has been an interesting. I was trying to do some different stuff this year, looking at the videos as a whole, like what type of content I was putting out on AI in games this year. So critically, for me, one of the things I really wanted to do was I've been interested, ever since I did GoldenEye, I've been really excited about the idea of been doing more and more retro stuff. You know, really looking back at older games and exploring what makes them tick. And critically, one of the things that, particularly stuff like GoldenEye, one of the things that I really loved about that video is we're going back to a time where if you're a game developer yourself, you know, having, you know, the understanding how to use nav meshes or behavior trees, or even just the standard of we use finite state machines now for game development wasn't really in place in a way that it is now. And so I really like going back to these older games just to see how on earth they made this stuff work. And so this year we started with episode 64, which was Mario 64. And that was an episode I'd been sitting on for a long time. Yeah, JDLB, college PowerPoint presentation. That's what I'm doing. We do a PowerPoint presentation. It's not very long. It's only about 10 slides, but we'll get through it. And there's some fun anecdotes and other stuff in there. But yeah, so I really wanted to do Mario 64. It was... every now and then I still have a game on my bucket list that I'm like, I want to hit that and I want to get that in the series somewhere. And so I was super pleased that I got that video done. And it came out better than I expected. And yeah, as somebody who, you know, Mario 64 was very important to me personally. I was a teenager. I was in high school, early high school, when Mario 64 came out. And so that was one I really, really enjoyed doing. Interestingly, you know, overall, I'd say like the number of videos this year is down on the last, like there's actually been a gradual decline of the number of videos I'm putting out. And that's been down to a lot of personal circumstances and work, which we'll get to in a couple of slides, actually. So yeah, this year there was only 6, as you can see, plus the bonus, which is the flawed masterpiece Aliens Colonial Marines video. Whereas last year I actually did 7 main episodes of AI in games. So yeah. David Thomas says, is there any way of tracking the evolution of any given studio's AI from retro to next gen? Like, that would be an interesting thing to do, but it requires them to communicate. Like, funnily enough, I remember doing the Total War episodes a while back, where we did actually see that transition across numerous episodes about how they kept rebuilding stuff. And I've heard some very interesting stuff through the grapevine as to what they've been up to recently, and they've went away and re-architected their AI pipeline again over at Creative Assembly for Total War. Very interested to hear about that going forward. But yeah, it's very difficult quite often to get an idea of how these things are evolving, because it really comes down to whether or not they ever speak publicly about it or they're willing to talk to me about it. yeah, so we did that, Mario 64. And then, so funnily enough, Townscaper, episode 65, that was originally, so as some of you will know, I'm on the advisory board for the GDC AI Summit. And we were looking for talks in 2020 for the 2021 conference. And I'd been following Oscar Stahlberg's work on Townscaper, which, uses wave function collapse as part of its, as a generation algorithm in order to build all its towns. So interestingly enough, I'd reached out to Oscar and I said, hey, you'd be interested in doing anything for GDC? And he's like, nah, I don't really want to go over there. And it's a big trek. And, he's got family and everything back in Sweden. So he's like, nope, not my cup of tea. I said, fair enough. I said, but also while I'm here, I do this YouTube thing. If you're interested in doing an interview for the YouTube thing. And I said, cool. So we arranged an interview. And actually, I interviewed him. I think that video came out in about February or March of this year. I interviewed him at the end of, it was right at the start of 2021. Or was it right at the end of 2020? It was one of the two. No, end of 2021, start of 2022. It was one of the two. It was around the winter because he was actually ill slightly, had a cold. And which is why I've been very judicious about how I cut that episode together, because Oscar was a little under the weather. But I put that whole video together thinking, I just love Townscaper. I think it's a really cool project. We'll be interested to see how it does. It is the #1 video of the year, by far. It was the most watched episode that I made. I think last I checked, it's about 120 something thousand views. It's done about the same amount of views in the same window as, in its 9 months. It did about this. It was at my Forza video ended 2021 with an equivalent number of views. And so I just thought that was absolutely crazy. Like, it's the most watched video, and it is this very niche kind of indie game. But I also think it kind of speaks to, one, the appeal of the game, but also two, how popular that game is outside of traditional game development and like hardcore gaming circles, that it's found an audience in a way that most other games don't. And yeah, that video continues to get views in a way that a lot of other videos don't. It had a big spike, and then for a long time, so one of the things, we'll talk about this in a few slides, but AI, when you look at my annual figures, my alien videos tend to be, on a regular basis, on a given day, the 2 most watched videos. People still watch those alien isolation videos. But for months, Townscaper was the #1 video. Every day, some people were watching the Townscaper video, and the alien videos were falling until it's 2nd and 3rd place, which was nuts. But I'm so happy that we got to put a bit of exposure behind it. And yeah, it came out very well. I'm very happy with how that episode came together. And then, so 64, I had to do Mario 64. And for episode 66, you'll note actually there's been a theme this year of dumb episode number jokes. So 64 was Mario 64. 66 was Doom, because I made it episode 666, because I'm never going to get that far. I'll probably drop dead beforehand. And 69, nice, was the fake episode generator. And so I've been kind of playing around with the numbers a little bit. I'm trying to find ways to appease myself in some weird way, but that's what it is. So yeah, the AI of Doom. I thought we've done the episode on Doom 2016 a couple of years ago. It's one of my most popular videos. I actually rewatched that video recently because I was using it for research. This is a weird thing. I quite often have to go back and watch my own videos to remember things that I put in them, because I've done 69 videos now of the main series anyway. But I wanted to go and do Doom. Doom to me was such an important game to put in there. It sits next to GoldenEye as a game I need to cover at some point. And I finally took the plunge, and I'm very happy with how it came out. It was also the episode I probably enjoyed making them. It's a tie, actually, I think, between 66 and 69, which episode I enjoyed making the most. Because I think you can kind of feel I'm putting a lot of myself and a lot of my energy into that Doom video. J. Delaby, it's like Ridley Scott, where I can't get aliens out of my mind. You know what? I would like to get aliens out of my mind, but it is what it is. So yeah, the episode of Doom, I'm very pleased with it. I think it comes together in a nice way. I'm very, very proud of that one. But there is more classic games that I have on my to-do list, and 1 or 2 of them have recently came into my possession, if you will, that we can actually do it. And there's one of them that I'm currently reaching out to someone with the intent to get a bit of support to make it happen. And I'm quite excited to see where we go with that. So yeah, that was that. And then 67 was Death Stranding. And that was a weird one. Death Stranding. So this video is based on the GDC postmortem on Death Stranding, which I thought was a wonderful talk. I absolutely adored it because it was just such a nice thing of, here's something that we can do all the time, navigation in a game, getting a character to walk around, and then how Hideo Kojima's ridiculous game design ideas broke everything, and we had to go back almost to basics and rebuild all of our tools to support this. Because bear in mind, Death Stranding's built on the Decima engine, which is owned by Guerrilla Games. That's the same engine that was used for Horizon Zero Dawn. And the tools that were there aren't sufficient for what they needed for Death Stranding. And I think it's a really interesting video. And yeah, it's one of those weird sells. It's going to be a difficult one to sell to people, I think, ultimately, because it's all right. He's just talking about walking. But I really enjoyed working on that. And I do say in the video, like, I highly recommend looking at the GDC postmortem as well, because it's a fascinating talk that goes into much more detail than I covered there. And then actually, probably the biggest flop of the year, which was the episode on GT Sophie about Gran Turismo. This was, this came out to a bit of fanfare earlier in the year. The fact that Sony AI have went away and trained their own deep learning based AI player that can play Gran Turismo. And I thought, I'm going to go in and do the proper diligence on this and tell the story of how it came about and also how it works. And yeah, hardly anybody watched it. Like, that video, actually, the episode generator has less views, I think. But I think in total, if you combine the two episode generator videos, the fake one and the explanation of how I did it, those have more views than the episode on Sophie. Yeah, just did not get any traction at all. And that's a little disappointing. It happens. Certainly, interestingly, I think over the last year or so, been able to distance myself a little bit more from the numbers. And I'm just like, nah, fuck it. I'm going to put a video up. If people watch it and they like it, brilliant. If people don't watch it, well, I'm on to the next one. I really don't have time. But on one hand, I'm proud of it. I do think that the video isn't perfect. It's a bit long and it's a bit complicated, but that's also the nature of the topic. But I'm glad I got it done, ultimately. So, I mean, and also it's kind of nice because I've got this nice kind of breakdown of, here's how things worked in Forza on the Drivatar, and now I've also looked at how Sophie works in Gran Turismo. So yeah. Yeah, Avian Overlord says, racing games I think are very niche exclusive. Yeah, I also believe, I actually have joked with some friends that I think this channel actually has a curse on it, that whenever I talk about a game that's actually a Sony exclusive, it doesn't do as well. Yeah, when I talk about a Sony game, I think I've done Horizon Zero Dawn, I've done Death Stranding, I've done Gran Turismo, I've done The Last of Us. The video on the first Last of Us game is the one with the most views, but when you compare it to like Xbox franchises, they don't do as well. It's quite funny, but yeah. And then I wanted to, so episode 69, yes, the Sony curse. Episode 69 was an idea I had for a while. Actually, it's not even the only idea I've had. I've been very interested in the idea of, can I start doing more videos where AI actually takes over or generates the content of the conversation for the video? And yeah, I've been really keen to do more of that stuff. And I was actually working on something else entirely. And we'll get to that, I think, maybe next year. Hopefully I can carve some time out to do that. Time is going to be a precious commodity, as we're going to discover at the end of this presentation. But yeah, episode 69, I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I could write an episode generator? And so I'd been sitting on the idea for a while, but I just didn't get time to do it. And it wasn't until about October that I had a couple of weeks where things were a bit quieter. Actually, the reasons for that will be made evident in a minute. And I just sat down and hacked it out, and I had a working model in about a day and a half. And I was like, hey, look at this works. And then actually recording it was one of the funniest things because it was terrible. It was terrible. And as you've heard, if you've listened to that video, it's really bad and it's not good. And I was very committed to doing it in the way I actually got, oh my God, I forgot. So I got so much flack when I released this video. And I know some people were annoyed, but it was all part of the gag, was because I deliberately didn't announce, like I changed the title of the video a day later to say that, oh, the AI wrote this. But because you have to watch the video to the end for me to explain, oh, hey, actually, this was entirely fake. The AI wrote the episode and then I just recorded it. But I thought, in fact, I remember talking about this with the patrons in the Discord server going, yo, wouldn't it be funny if should I just release this as is and keep a straight face? And I think it might have been Solid Reactor actually, who was like, do it. And I'm like, fine. And so we released it as is. And there's some people in the comments who are super angry because they watched it and then were like, what do you mean this is fake? This is disrespectful to your audience and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, chill out, pal. Just calm down. We're all here to have a laugh. And yeah, afterwards I then changed it because I thought, right, well, after a day, the gig is up. Yeah, I had a lot of fun recording that. And in fact, there is for patrons, there's a bonus video where I recorded my recording of the script because I'm in tears. I'm breaking down at numerous points because I'm trying to go through the lines of dialogue. And some of it is just so, oh God. The line in the opening chapter where it's like, I'm not interested in any form of AI research that is important, broke me, I think, the first time I read it. It's just like, where the fuck did you get that idea from? At what point did the AI figure it? That must be something Tommy would say at some point. I'm like, how? How did you reach this revelation? Oh, God. But yeah, so that was AI in games for this year. A little bit less than I would like. And also a lot of classic games, niche indie games. And there was a little bit of AAA, but we're going to see a bit more across that. What were my favorite lines? J. Delabeat says, yeah, definitely the one about I'm not interested in any form of AI research that is important. The human dog, which is like one of the opening lines as well, I think was hilarious. Unlike a human dog that had no weapon that felt painfully extra. And then was it when it starts inventing words, and I still don't know how it came to that conclusion, like wasulating, and stuff like that. There's and what's the one? Was it pads? Or was it stands, a 4-letter word, much not unlike a vehicle, which the AI then eats or something. Like there's a whole bit there, and then like fish breaking the immersion is also another one that I love. Solid Reactor says, I'd love to see an update using Transformers or Lambda ResNet someday to see how the progress in the field is. Yeah, like, or even as Tokyo says, like GPT-3, because I did it in GPT-2. I'd like to do a follow-up to that episode. One of the things I want to do is I want to come back to this idea, because I actually was working on a few other AI-related ones. And so it's going to be, I want to come back to this idea over the next couple of years and see how the technology is improving. And could I, like, the joke is essentially, could I get to a point where I can just get AI to generate the entire thing? You know, what if I do, at one point, that episode was even more complicated because I was even contemplating like using Stable Diffusion to generate AI created images to then create a slideshow. Excuse me. For the video. And I thought, no, like, let's just do the script, and then we can keep coming back to this idea and doing it again and again and again and again, and we can iterate further so that we can turn it into a little playlist and you can actually see how it progresses and matures over time. And that's assuming I'm making more videos, which that is the goal. So yeah, that's AI in games. Of course, an honorary mention, of course, to Design Dive. Design Dive, I didn't get to do as many of them this year as I hoped. I did 3 this year versus 5 the year before. So I've been continuing my Resident Evil, my Revisiting Evil series, which has not been terribly popular, but I've still quite enjoyed making it. And so we did part 2, which looked at Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, and then part 3 that looked at the remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 3. And I'm working on part 4 now, which I'm trying to decide whether or not 7 and 8 stay together in one video or it becomes 2 separate videos, because 7 and 8 are markedly different games. And I'm in the middle of playing 8 right now, and I was quite interested. There's an interesting theme in 7 that I wanted to pull on about what makes that game so interesting is that actually the AI isn't that intelligent, really, when you really look at the Baker family. But the way that they're framed and the way that the game supports those characters and develops those characters makes them probably the most interesting and empathetic, or characters that for which you certainly evoke some empathy for, than any other characters in the Resident Evil franchise. And I found that really, really interesting, that there's certain aspects also of their AI behavior that they get around and that they don't have to be as precise as others, because they're able to lean on the fact that these are actual people who have became twisted by what's happened to them. And I thought that was super interesting, and I really liked that in a way that the 8 doesn't do this. 8 is a very different game from 7. In fact, I think 8 is the better game because it feels more bombastically read. You can clearly tell there's a lot of the DNA of Resident Evil 4 is in Resident Evil Village, but it's also doing similar things as 7, but it's doing it in a markedly different way. And it's very interesting to see the change of into the first person perspective as well, how all these things come together to create an experience that feels markedly different from the previous Resident Evil games. But yeah, I'm really enjoying. I need to finish 8 before I start writing it. My goal is to finish 8 and actually get the next video out before the remake of 4 comes out, because I've got a funny feeling I'm immediately just going to go and play it. The episode on Doom Eternal, I am very pleased with this. I actually also induced mild burnout in myself because I had a lot of work going on in my job. But then I was adamant that I released the episode on Doom and the episode on Doom Eternal in the same weekend. But I'm very proud of that video. And one of the reasons for it is, and you might have gathered this if you've watched the video, I'm not a big fan of Doom Eternal. That was a difficult pill for me to swallow, because I remember when the game came out, one of the very rare times where I bought into the hype and I was very excited for a new game. But I didn't enjoy it. It took my second playthrough for me to appreciate it a bit better. But at the end of the day, I still think 2016 is the better game, because I think there's some fundamental flaws in the way that they built Doom Eternal. But the thing is, if you resonate with it, you'll love it. And it was interesting to see so many people in the comments going, I absolutely love this game and I love it so much more than 2016. But I've replayed both of them in recent months, and I still think 2016 is hands down the better game. I think that it's... And so for me, this video was like, I want to celebrate what this game does right, but I also want to critique it in a way that made it fair. And I didn't feel like I was punishing the game too much. And interestingly enough, I actually had a DM on Twitter from Mark Brown of Game Maker's Toolkit, who really enjoyed the episode, actually. He said he thought I did a really good job of balancing that, because being critical of games is not something I do regularly around here, but it was also something I really wanted to do it. I'm sorry, I'm going to move my camera slightly because I'm slightly annoyed at my positioning in the frame here. But yeah, and so it's came out pretty well, quite happy with it. And I understand that I don't have the same opinion as a lot of other people, but it is what it is. And then we had the... Oh, one of the slides has disappeared there. We had the AI 101 on Barks, which I really am happy I made that one. And I'm really happy I made that episode on Bark AI, because it's just something that needs to be covered, frankly. And it's one of those things that people often don't really realize is part of a lot of gameplay and AI design systems. And it's been on my to-do list for a little while. It was just a topic I really wanted to cover. And so we did it. And I really also, because critically, I wanted to highlight, as much as it's maybe not that important in the grand scheme of a lot of other, when it comes to AI innovations, but Call of Duty is the game that kind of cemented this. It was Call of Duty 2 that really cemented the Barks for the modern era in a way that kind of took the idea that Half-Life had already done and then kind of really fleshed it out in a more interesting way. And then you can see it, how it's roughly the same system that's used in the likes of Hades. It's used in the likes of even God of War, the more in modern AAA games. Like, modern AAA games use it all the freaking time. It's like, hey, hello, player, do you know how to do the puzzle? You know where you're going? You're going to do the thing. You're going to come here, and you're like, shut up. Even like the Horizon Zero Dawn Forbidden West, like do the thing where Aloy talks to herself all the time, which I haven't played the sequel yet, but people keep saying that she talks too much in that one. I kind of liked her sarcastic attitude in the first one, but I hear they overdid it in the sequel. So yeah, actually, I meant to put the slide in because I realized it's not here. We did the AI and Games Jam again this year, AI and Games Jam 2022. We ran it in October, and that was purely because I just didn't have time in May to do this. Like I said, I actually suffered a bit of burnout in May. I was just swamped with so much different work that I was doing because I was effectively doing work in like 4 different directions. I think that's even an understatement. And so trying to run the jam then wasn't feasible. And then also Mark Brown and I had a conversation about making sure we didn't step on each other's toes this year. I say step on each other's toes. What I mean is Mark doesn't crush our game jam with his game jam because it's like the biggest thing on itch. And so we'd made sure we weren't going to cross paths, but then I just couldn't do it in the summer anyway. But we ran it. In fact, I just did the review video recently, which was about a month late because COVID ill. But we didn't get as many people sign up this year, but we had maybe about 50% of games compared to last year. And despite the fact that we didn't run it in the summer, I think that was still pretty good. And also the work that came out this year was just phenomenal. I'm very impressed once again by what people in the community make. And I get super jealous. Yeah. One day I'd actually like to participate in the jam myself, but yeah, Mark's shoe size is 20. Yeah. And in real life, I have a shoe size of 11. And even then, it's just like, no. So, but yeah, I hope we can come back and do the jam again next year. And ideally, we're going to be able to do it in the summer. So yeah, thinking about what else has gone on. This year's been a busy year for me. This is because COVID has enabled for things to open up a little, or not necessarily the elimination, but the reduction of COVID has allowed for things to open up again. And it's meant I've been out and about a little bit more, doing more things, but also a lot of work projects that I've been involved in have reached a point of fruition. So just in no particular order here, let's have a look. So yeah, I'm still involved with GDC, the AI Summit. GDC is running in like 3 months. And I'm part of the AI Summit Advisory Board. We have new people who've joined us this year. So it's myself, Steve Rabin over at Nintendo, Ahmed Khalifa, who is at the Institute of Digital Games in Malta, Andrea Schell, who is she's at Microsoft at the moment, if I remember right. Yes, formerly she's been very prolific developer at Electronic Arts for a long time, but currently at Microsoft, and Dugu Chakmak, who is one of the lead AI developers and researchers actually at Creative Assembly. And so we've been working together on next year's set of talks, and we're quite excited because it's coming together. Yeah, let's see what else is there. In the middle, you can see that I was given a talk. I was back on the road again this year, which was nice, doing talks both virtually and physically. But this was actually my first physical talk that I'd done in person at an event in over 2 years. Actually, that's not true. I was in Korea last year and I gave a talk under very heavy COVID restrictions. This is the first time I gave one in the UK, actually in over 2 years. So this was me at Develop. Develop is sort of the GDC of the UK, except much, much smaller. But it's the biggest game development conference in the UK. And I was invited to give a talk there on AI character design. And I was really worried that no one would be interested. And then it was standing room only. It was unbearably hot in that that venue in Brighton. And if you're not familiar, Brighton's right on the south coast of England. And the summer was kicking in, but all the air conditioning in the hotel wasn't working because they were doing renovations. And I'm so grateful that I'm wearing a black t-shirt there, because by the end, the sweat, I just caked it in sweat. I actually came off the stage, had some conversations with some developers afterwards to arrange some business meetings, and then immediately went back to my hotel for a shower because I was disgusting. But I'm very pleased I got to do that talk. And also I got to meet, one of the really edifying things was I got to meet a lot of people who were like, oh, we've been watching your stuff for years in the studio, or like, just in general, they've been fans. And so that's always really, really nice, to just meet people who are generally interested in the nonsense that I make, really. In fact, funnily enough, there's a particular, I'll maybe come back to this in a second, but there was a particular story that actually, no, let's do it now. So one of the things we do at the event is you get to, there's like a, if you're a speaker, you're allowed to go into like the press, there's like a press and speaker area that you can go and hang out. But critically, there's also like a lunch event that runs, and we get to hang out with all the other speakers. And so it's nice when you get to see actual quote unquote famous people of the games industry and go and have a chat with them and stuff like that. And Dinga Bakaba, who is, I'm trying to remember, what is Dinga's current job title? Let me actually, I was going to say, I'll have a quick look online. So he's, the co-creative director and studio director at Arcane, because Dinga had been in giving one of the keynotes that we had at the event was for Deathloop. And I'm just hanging around and I'm having something to eat and I'm chatting with a few other developers, and Dinga comes over. And he's like, "Hi, good to meet you." He says, "By the way, why have you never made a video about any of our games?" And I was like completely taken aback by it. Like, maybe we need to fix that. And he said, "Yes, I think we should fix that." That's not a commitment. I'm not saying that we're doing the AI of Deathloop or the AI of Dishonored or anything anytime soon. But that was really nice that like the studio of like the director of a fairly big AAA studio came over and was immediately like, "Yo, you've never made any videos about our games." And it's like, yeah, funnily enough, Dishonored has actually been on the to-do list for a little while, but such a weird little event. Yeah, that was fun. What else? The Pragmatic Engineer. So if you're not familiar, this is the biggest technology newsletter on Substack. And I was invited to come and to write an article for it earlier in the year. It came out in October, I think, or November. It's kind of funny that this is now like I say, that the Pragmatic Engineer has kind of now become very well known in sort of software engineering circles for like breaking news and sort of talking about the goings on of the industry. But it's written by and organized by a guy I used to work with like over 10 years ago. Gergi Oros, who actually he's worked at a couple of big companies, Uber, worked at Skype, if I remember right. And but that was after he worked for a small software house in Scotland that I also worked at. He went off to go and work at Skype and then Uber. I went off to go and work in academia. So one of us made more money than the other, and the other one became a lecturer. And years later, he's like, "I'm interested in doing some stuff on game development." And lo and behold, this guy that I worked with 10 years ago is now involved in a whole bunch of game development. And he was like, "Would you mind doing it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And that was really nice to do. It was really fun. And we're thinking of doing more of it because he really enjoyed it. He really liked the stuff I wrote. And yeah, we're going to maybe take it from there. What else? Over on the far left, I'm still doing work with Model AI. And in fact, the phrase Model AI is going to become more pervasive around here in the coming months. But I still continue to make videos for them. It's a job that I do for them. And I get to work with a lot of people that actually I have known professionally for over 10 years. Funnily enough, this Meet the Founder series we did. So the company recently went through another round of seed funding to the tune of like, I think it was 30 million euros or $30 million or something like that. And they were promoting all this stuff recently. And we did this Meet the Founder series where I interviewed all the founders. And interestingly, I didn't realize that this was the one I'd picked, but so you can see it over there, middle row, left-hand side. The gentleman on that thumbnail with me is Professor Yorgos Yanakakis. Yorgos runs the Institute of Digital Games in Malta. He's also one of the research leads at Model AI. I have known Yorgos since I was in my final year of my undergraduate. And in fact, he was my first point of contact when I got to learn more about game AI research. I can say actually with some confidence that if it weren't for Yorgos helping me out when he was a PhD student, helping me out with a project problem I had, I probably wouldn't be here today, because my whole career path essentially stems from the success I had in that AI project. So it's kind of funny being able to do that video with him all these years later. Up the top, so top left, NVIDIA. No, actually, you know what? I'm going to come back to that last, because there's a story I have to tell before that one. In the middle, on the top row, Aspire 2, that's developed by Digital Load in Australia. That actually just came out on the Quest 2 last month. I was a design consultant on that game for about a year, and very happy to see it out the door and finished. I still haven't had a chance to play it. Like, I last played the game about a year. No, when did I finish working on that? was about a year ago, roughly. I think it was a little bit later than that, but essentially I haven't played the game since it was what we call campaign complete, which basically means we had one level that was largely done and the rest of them were just very rough blockouts, and I was giving feedback on AI design. So I'm very happy. That's another game that I have a credit on, which is awesome, and very lovely studio to work with, even though the time difference was horrendous. Absolutely lovely bunch of people, and I wish them all the very best. Now, the funny thing is, on the bottom, the middle row, on the right-hand side, you'll notice Golden Era. So that was the GoldenEye documentary that I appeared in this summer, which was quite funny, because I recorded it in 2020. In fact, I recorded it right before lockdowns. I think about 2 weeks before the COVID lockdowns hit in the UK, I ended up in an apartment that was an Airbnb in London, being invited over to do the interview. For that with the director. And one of the funny things about this was, and I mentioned this recently and I did the video and I was celebrating the launch of Espire 2, was when I was interviewed for this, the guys that were involved, one of them actually worked at the time at Digital Load on Espire 2. And so they were like, we would need to figure out the design of all this stuff. And he's like, I've literally just interviewed this guy in England who seems to know an awful lot about game AI. Maybe you have a conversation with him. And so even though they both came out within a couple of months of each other, the two projects, I wouldn't have worked on Espire 2 were it not for the fact that I did Golden Era. And the reason I did Golden Era was because I made the GoldenEye video. And they reached out to me and were like, yo, do you fancy being part of this documentary? And I remember at the time I didn't know who they were. And I was like, are these guys legit? I don't know what's going on. And someone pulling my leg. And this is a natural thing I do anytime someone reaches out to me to do some collaboration or something. The first thing I do is I do my research on who this person is and whether or not they're legit. And I reached out to David Doak, the Dr. Doak, because Dr. Doak and I are kind of acquaintances these days. So I reached out to him, I was like, David, hi, like these guys are reaching out to me. And he's like, oh no, they're legit. Like they've interviewed me as well. He's like, yeah, totally, go for it. And actually, I didn't know this at the time. Dr. Doak did some consultancy on the original Espire. In fact, if you play the original Espire, there's an Easter egg in it. You got to go and find it, but actually Dr. Doak is in the game. You can go and find him. So yeah, I did that, and then COVID hit, and then 9 months later, I end up working on Espire 2, and then they both came out within a couple of months of each other. It was such a weird set of circumstances, but it was also it was awesome. It was kind of cool. Yeah. What else? BAFTA? Right, yeah. So I am now a member of BAFTA Connect, which is sort of like the bottom rung of BAFTA, which the British Association for Film and Television. And so, yeah, that's kind of cool. I've been threatening, I have a couple of friends who are full BAFTA members or we go to the BAFTA Game Awards and stuff like that. And it's kind of a nice thing to have on your CV. And for many years, I've been thinking about doing it. And then they announced BAFTA Connect this year. So I applied for it and I got in. So I'm on the lowest rung of BAFTA now, which is kind of awesome. That's kind of a nice thing to have on the CV. Right, I guess this brings us to, there's 3 of these left. Let's go to King's College London. So this is actually the big secret. Well, it's not quite a secret. I did actually talk about it on Twitter, but this is actually the big change in my life. I quit academia 2 months ago. End of September, I walked away from my job at King's College London. I've worked there for over 2 years. I've had a very good time working there. One of the best universities I've ever worked at, and that's despite the fact I worked there during a goddamn pandemic. Wonderful group of people, wonderful department, I think, and also our students in general are great. I have had a crisis of faith and confidence, not a crisis of faith and a crisis of direction, I think, for several years now. As many of you know, I'm a university lecturer. I still think I am a university lecturer, even though I'm not. And I was doing it for 10 years. This year was my 10-year anniversary of being in academia. And essentially, by American standards, I was an assistant professor. Just for all our Americans there going, what does a lecturer mean? And I decided it was time to move on and do something different. And I've been thinking about it for a long time. And I had a plan. I actually had a plan that I was hoping to roll out before King's came up, because I was still at Anglia Ruskin University in Cambridge and I hated it because that university is bad. You heard it from me first. And I was thinking about getting out. And I started working part-time a few years ago, and that's when I led to doing a bit more work in the industry. And I worked on, in fact, I was a programmer on Abermore, which came out earlier this year as well, which I'd kind of forgotten about. And a few other projects that I'd been involved in. You know, I was doing more of that. But I'd been thinking I want out entirely. And one of the big difficulties is, if you've been in academia for a long time, how do you find the currency in terms of your professional currency that you can get out and actually go out and go back to the working world again, which is often kind of difficult. And so one of the things I've been doing is I've been working my ass off basically for most of the pandemic. I was working 6-day weeks, and I was working a lot of overtime in evenings and weekends. And it was all to service a point, to service a goal that I wanted to get out, but I wanted to make sure I had a financial buffer to allow me to get out and build my business a bit more. So one of the things that happened actually right before the pandemic was actually AI in Games became a company. And so I started doing a lot of consultancy work, and now it goes through my business. So AI in Games became a business for myself. It's how I sustain myself. It's how I make money. It's how I live. And YouTube is now one stream by which I make money and get by and pay my bills and shit. So it was difficult for me to reach this point where I'm like, I'm going to leave. And I talked with my partner about it at great length, and we said, we've got a plan, let's do it. And so I was knocking my ass in, doing a lot of extra work, you know, doing work for Model AI, doing work on Aspire, doing work on Deathground, which is the dinosaur game, which is still in development. I've not actually had any involvement in Deathground for a few months now. I don't know whether I'm going back, actually. I don't know. I haven't spoken to anyone at the studio in 2-3 months. We reached a certain point in work, in development, where the team was able to go off and do their thing, and I haven't spoken to them since. So I have no idea what's going on, really. In fact, I haven't really been paying attention either, because no one's reached out. They've paid all their bills, so it could be I'm no longer working on Deathground. I might be working on some other stuff, though, which I can't talk about, because I have NDAs. Anyway, so all this stuff's been going on, and I was like, right, it's time to pull the plug. And the university were originally like, oh, please stay. And it was really nice of them to say that. They're like, please stay. Like, you've done great work here with us. We're really pleased with the work you do. I don't actually have my mugs here, but I actually was nominated for and won teaching awards. Again, I've done it a few times. You know, no brag, but it is what it is. Oh, my teaching award isn't in here anyway. Never mind. But I received some King's Education Awards while I was there. The students generally quite like me. So, yeah, as of the end of September, I'm out. And what do? Well, I do a whole bunch of development work. I'm doing actual game development again. I do consultancy for a few studios, and I'm doing all my video production and marketing work over at Model AI. So the business is very busy. And what I'm trying to do is I want to carve out some time for myself, because I want to be able to continue to make videos, and I want to make the stuff that I want to make, and I want to do it without working evenings and weekends anymore, because I've had to essentially work overtime for years just to get by, and also to try and build the YouTube. Now, interestingly, YouTube is an obligation, because I run this company now where people reach out because they watch my videos and go, that guy seems to know what he's talking about. We should speak to him. And I literally have a couple of meetings that have happened in the last couple of weeks that are indicative of that. I can't speak to the specifics, but once again, the vast majority of companies that reach out to work with me are like, oh, we watched your stuff on YouTube. It's like, it's nuts. It's crazy. In fact, funnily enough, the first company I worked for in my consulting capacity was Intel a couple of years ago. And they reached out and they're like, oh yeah, we watched your videos. They were great. I'm like, you don't, and then afterwards they're like, oh, you have a PhD in AI as well. I'm like, being a face on the internet is not something I envisaged, but I've realized this is where my life is going, and why not? So starting as of the 1st of October, I work for myself 100%. And that is a terrifying prospect for me for a number of reasons that I had to really get over and prepare myself for this. But I'm now fully self-sustaining. And as we'll discuss in a little bit, YouTube is not where I make money. I make money. I do make money here on YouTube. Don't get me wrong. In the grand scheme of things, I make not that much money on YouTube compared to where I make money elsewhere. So I'm never going to be 100% YouTuber, but YouTube is always going to be part of what I'm doing as so long as my business and my company is going. And I'm still invested in doing this because at the end of the day, I love making videos and I still enjoy this whole thing. So with that, two other things. The NVIDIA video in DLSS 3. In October, I was like, I'm going to take a month off. I need a break. I really need to just unwind, chill out, get away from everything, and plan a little bit of what I'm doing. And then literally, I think I was 4 days into my break, and I get an email from NVIDIA saying, yo, do you want to review the RTX 4090? We really liked your DLSS 2 video. Would you like to do a video on DLSS 3? I'm like, oh shit, I can't say no to that. That's too good an opportunity. So yeah, I worked on that video. That was crazy because one of the funny things was they sent out all this, I got access to the press portals and all the PR material that they were providing and demos and stuff like that. So, you know, to this day, I think even some of the DLSS 3 enabled versions of games like Cyberpunk, I don't think they're publicly available yet, but I've got access to the DLSS 3 demo of the game, or the demo. Actually, it's not even a demo. It's the full game with DLSS 3 enabled, but it's not public yet. So I got to work on that, and that was great. One of the funny things was there was stuff that I wanted in like science white papers that they didn't make publicly available. And I'm like, can you make these available for me? Because I really want to learn. And because all the other people in the press aren't interested. And I'm like, no, I want to read this thing and find out how the science works. And they actually had to go and reach out to like the PR team, the British, the UK PR team, and be like, can you guys put this up on the press portal so I can read it? And they did. It was great. So, you know, huge thank you to them. It was such a great opportunity, and I'm grateful that I did it. And then at the bottom, we've got Spilt Milk Studios. So Spilt Milk Studios is actually a small indie developer, a small indie studio in the UK. They're based in London. And I've known the studio for years. I've known the studio directors for a long time. And every time there's an opportunity for when they have work coming in, they have a new project they're spinning up, they always reached out to me and they're like, yo, what's your availability like? Are you free? And we've never really had a situation where our schedules aligned. And then a certain circumstance arose where they're like, actually, we could really use someone with a certain skill set to come into the company if you're interested. So one of my clients that I work for at the moment is Spilt Milk. And we are a small studio of around a dozen developers. We're working on a number of different projects. Actually, right now, we're doing a lot of stuff on Creta, which is for Facebook games. In fact, Creta was on Google Stadia for a while. So we're doing a lot of stuff for them, but we also are making our own games and pitching our own games. So I'm actually now technical lead for the studio. So I'm kind of supporting our principal developer and all our junior developers to make sure all our tools, pipelines, processes are together. So it's a weird semi-management position, and I do it on a part-time basis to support the principal developer. And the whole dev team. And we've been working there now for about 2 months. We just had our end of sprint earlier today, and we got to showcase, you know, we had an internal playtest and demo of our game that we're working on at the moment. And it's looking great. So that's been another weird thing. So this year I've been working on so many different things with so many different companies, and that just led to me being quite tired, but also me making a little less videos. But also, as you're going to see, this is all about to change in a kind of a big way going forward in January, actually. So, Prince says, you were such a great lecturer at King's. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you felt like that. I don't know if I actually think I didn't do as well as I'd hoped, but I think interestingly, teaching during the pandemic was quite a difficult thing, both during the pandemic, but then when the universities reopened, getting back into the flow of it, being in the room with students was difficult. And I struggled with that a little in a way that historically I haven't, because I'm not used to being in front of a room of 300 people again, all of whom could have COVID. Anyway, moving on. Let's quickly talk some numbers. This slide is, this whole presentation is going longer than I envisaged, but no, never mind. So yeah, there you go. A little bit of, we'll maybe hide myself very briefly. Let's do that. So there you go. There's all the numbers. This year, we did slightly less number of videos. Actually, the views are almost the same as last year. In fact, I think the difference is around 80,000 views at the moment. So yeah, sitting at around 1 million views. The total number of subs isn't as big either. And at the bottom there, what you can see is the total, actually in order from top to bottom, left to right, the most watched views videos of the year. And interestingly, Townscaper overtakes both the Alien videos, but it's so funny to me that after all this time, Alien is still number 2 and number 3 in the most watched of 2022. On top of that, let's bring my face back. On top of that, Doom did quite well. Actually, the interesting thing that I sat and did some number crunching on this. The top 10 videos only account for around 50% of all views. So the top 10 videos down the bottom, they account for about 500,000 views on the channel. The other 500,000 views is all what I call library videos. So older videos that are getting 5, 10K a year. And it's funny. And the AI 101 videos, I have always envisaged that this is how they work, is that a lot of my videos, they come out, they have a big spike, and then they kind of level off. And maybe they get a gradual number of views. The AI 101 videos are on a constant incline because people are always looking out for them and trying to learn stuff. And that was the whole point of it, was that people, when they go, I don't know what goal-oriented action planning is, there's the video for you. I don't know what a behavior tree is, there's the video for you. So behavior trees, for example, that video broke 100,000 views this year. The goal-oriented action planning video is not far behind it. Actually, it's sitting at about 90-something thousand because every day it's getting views, and it's kind of interesting to see. Funnily enough, the texture upscaling explained, that's had the same thing. That video is continually getting video views on a regular basis, whereas a lot of my other videos, you make it and then nobody really watches it unless it gets a spike. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. Again, growth hasn't been big, but I'm over it. I really am. I'm kind of past caring about driving the numbers up. If anything, for a long time, that was something I was very keen to do. And I'm just kind of done with it, to be honest. Am I making videos that people are digging? You know, is there a certain number of, if they do well, they do great, and I'm pleased with that. It's nice to have at least one big video that blows up every year. In this case, it was Townscaper. I'd like to see that on the regular, but I'm not chasing that dragon because it just hurts. It hurts you mentally. It hurts your mental health. It impacts your physical health. It is not worth doing. And as I've just explained on the previous slide, I'm fucking busy. I don't have time to be chasing this. And I'm just over that. So for me, it's now, let's just make good content. Let's get it out there and hope people enjoy it. Ideally, I'd like to make it a little faster, but I don't want to be spending my evenings and weekends doing it unless it's accounted for in my schedule. You know, so it's like, oh, tonight, for example, I'm doing this live stream. I finished work, all my work I was doing about 3 o'clock today. So I said, I'm going to take a couple of hours, chill out, relax a little bit. I was doing some personal errands and what have you. Have some dinner, spend some time with my partner. Then I'm going to go and do the live stream. So it doesn't mean I'm working all the way up to 5 or 6 o'clock, quickly grabbing something to eat and then doing this live stream. It all has to be sustainable going forward, because if I'm going to be my own boss, I need to start behaving like that. Otherwise, it's never going to work. And critically, when I wasn't my own boss and I was working at the university or what have you, all the videos were being made in the evenings and weekends, and that was how I was burning myself out all the time. So going forward, no, we're not doing that. Bad, Tommy. So things are going a bit slower. But provided that you're all still here, that the community is still here, that our Discord server is still there, people are watching the videos, people are enjoying the videos, that's the goal. That is the end game. So, and keeping on top of this is going to be an ongoing thing for me. Fortunately, my partner likes to shout at me a lot when I work too hard. Or work, not too hard, but too much. And vice versa, I shout at her. Critically, the other thing I wanted to point out, I didn't do this last year when I did this review, but I want to do it this year. Let's actually talk about revenue and how much money does this YouTube channel make? And I thought this is actually a useful thing to do because I got 1 million views this year. What does 1 million views look like in terms of monetization? When it comes to YouTube, 1 million views accounts for about £2,700 or $3,200. That is it. That's how much money you make on 1 million views. And one of the things that's critical to this is I get my CPM, my cost per mil. That varies from video to video. I'd probably say out of that revenue, at least 40% of it is the alien videos, because those alien videos make a lot of money because YouTube recognizes a lot of people watch them on the regular, so they put a lot of advertising on it. So yeah, that is how much money I make. But also, I wanted to talk about Patreon, because my Patreon community continues to support me every year, and I'm immensely grateful to them. But I actually wanted to show you, this is how much money that Patreon makes. So this year it was, these are rough numbers, they're not actual, but they're rounded. So this year it was around £8,000, which is around $9,600. And so this year YouTube monetization is down a tiny bit by like $100, but patronage is up by around £500. Now, this is, like I say, this is why I will never do YouTube full time, because you can go and do the math yourself and go, is that sustainable? And the answer is no. The only way those grow is if I keep making more and more videos, but then you're chasing the dragon. So for me, it's all about, this is part of the whole plan has been, coming back to, hang on, let me find it. Coming back to this slide, this has been the plan for 2 years, is I've been building the business up, building the clientele, building a bit of runway, financial runway, that I can go and do this full time, and I am not dependent on those numbers as much. I'm still dependent on it slightly, because at the end of the day, I still require that. I'm still using that money to, what that money does is it buys me out of time that I have to work for clients. And I go, with that money, this gives me a certain amount of time every month where I just make videos, and that's it. And it's very nice. Oh, there we go. And David Thomas says, good grief, suddenly I see why Linus Tech Tips figures a video with less than 1 million views is pretty much not worth it. Yeah, so even when I make a video that has got 50 to 100,000 views, it might make $100, and that's it. And you think, and that video maybe took me a week to make. So Thomas Anderson, thanks for being transparent. I want to, and it isn't, Scupipop says, Scupipop. I actually don't know how to pronounce that. I should really figure that out. I'm going to DM you about this over in the Discord. YouTube isn't a hobby, because it is critical to the business. And this was my mindset going into this in the future, was YouTube is my marketing wing to how I make money elsewhere. But critically, I need to keep making videos. But at the end of the day, I still love making videos more than anything. And particularly as my faith in education and academia and teaching waned, when I was increasingly dissatisfied, was, at the end of the day, I still wanted to make the videos because I enjoy making the videos, and it's so edifying when I see the audience really resonate. You go, oh, this is a great video, I've learned something here. Or I speak to people who are like, yeah, I watched your videos and then I went and learned to become a game developer and I now work in the industry or something. Or meeting people in the industry who really appreciate the work that I do. Like, and it's not for that praise, don't get me wrong. Like, personally, I love when I've got a video and it comes together and I put it out there and I'm like, great. The hardest bit in recent years has been disassociating how much money it makes such that I can live on it and how many views it gets, because that impacts how much money it makes. And so that's been part of this 2-year process, is getting myself into a position where I can keep making the videos, but it's not like, say, good example was like I said earlier this year, the Gran Turismo video flopped, didn't do well, made very little monetization. Townscaper and Doom made good money this year. Actually, the Doom video made more money than Townscaper, yet it's had about half the views, which is hilarious. But, when a video like that flops, it's not like, shit, am I going to be able to eat? It's, okay, we go on to the next video, because I've got a bunch of client work right now, and that's paying my bills. This is ultimately, if this side does better, it means I can make more content more frequently. But I'm also working to kind of cement that. And so critically, this is why Patreon is incredibly important to me, because it buys out more and more time for me to work on stuff. And critically, one of the interesting things, that patronage number is about double what it was about 3 years ago. It's crazy. But yeah. So once again, a huge thank you to all the Patreon community, because you do enable for me to focus, to give me the freedom that I can say I have at least about a week and a half every month where I can just focus on making a video, and I make it as best as I possibly can, and I make it for you and for the wider audience, of course. But this is, and particularly during that formative stage when I was trying to put the company together, this money was incredibly valuable, because I did get to a point where I was quite struggling financially. So now it's a slightly different set. I'm doing a little bit better. I'm able to pay all my bills and stuff like that, which is awesome. Now that money is able to not only just continue to allow me to make content, but it's allowing me to hire people in to do stuff. As you will see in a little bit, but also as you will hear sometime in the future as well. Yeah. So that was everything I kind of wanted to cover. And once again, like I say, I'm immensely grateful to all 155 of you who are active patrons on the AI and Games Patreon. Thank you all so much. You're absolutely great. And also thank you to all of you who watched videos and gave me, $3,200 worth of monetization. If you skipped the videos, well, I understand. Totally fine. I have ad blocker installed too. But yeah, I thought it would be good as an exercise in transparency to let you actually see that's what a YouTuber with a Patreon account and 1 million views a year gets financially. Not enough to get by on. But anyway, let's see. I guess we should probably go into the Q&A now, shouldn't we? Because the other stuff, what's coming in 2023, we will end on that. So I think actually there's a new feature that they have added into this. Nope, that's the super chat button. I was about to send myself money. That's not how this works. Let's go. It's Q&A time. Send me your questions. And let's see if that worked. So there we go. We have a Q&A now active in the chat. And the way that this works, I believe, is, I think they've stolen it off Microsoft Teams and Zoom and everything else, is that you submit your questions and then you'll be able to vote on them and get people to upvote, maybe. I don't know. Submit questions and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, that should be running now. In fact, can I have no idea how this is going to work. So yes, we've got the Q&A now running. So by all means, submit your stuff. David Thomas says, I'm happy to support Patreon and YouTube Premium. Hopefully still helps. Yes, actually, critically, YouTube Premium goes into that monetization number. So what you see there, that isn't just the ads. That is YouTube members that I've got, which I have, I think there's like half a dozen YouTube members, for example. But also YouTube Premium, what happens is because you use YouTube Premium and then watch one of my videos, if there was an ad on it, I essentially get an equivalent amount of revenue from YouTube because you were using YouTube Premium. So part of that in my breakdown is like, here's how much money you made from ads, here's how much money you made from YouTube Premium, and here's how much money you made from super chats, donations, because they've now got the super thanks, I think it is, where you can actually leave a tip on a video, which is kind of awesome. Someone actually sent me like $50 last month, which was kind of cool. Or you can be a member, where it's like, it's kind of Patreon on YouTube, which I try to support, but not many people actually sign up on that. So as these questions are rolling in, critically, I did ask in advance over on the Discord server. Let's see. Also, there's a very weird watch party conversation going on in the Discord server. That is very weird. Let's see. Where am I going? There we go. So a question that I got actually to Scoop, who's actually in the chat right now. Let's get back to me. His question he sent me was, what's the 2022 episode that wazzulates with you the most? For those not familiar, wosulates is one of the fake words that the AI generator created for the AI in games, the Colonial Marines video. And yeah, so that was kind of an interesting. Oh God, I guess what is that? Probably Doom. Doom makes me wosulate, which means I now need to figure out what wosulate means. Happy Pie has sent, or Solid Reactor, I believe, as you're called here on YouTube, has sent about 8 million questions. So we'll answer some of these, and then we'll also alternate back to what's happening here. Excuse me. Question. Name one or two things you think you could have done differently in 2022 regarding both YouTube and work if you want. I think the game jam is something I regret. I regret that we ran it so late in the year, but also I've just kind of reached a point mentally where I just didn't feel capable of. And the thing is that actually running the game jam isn't a huge amount of work once it's up and running. It's just getting it all in place and then running it. And I just had so many different things going on that I didn't feel comfortable. And I feel I could have done it differently, but at the same time, it was also a reflection of my circumstances at that point. Also, I think critically, I could have done a better job of not burning myself out creating the 2 Doom videos, because I did do that. And afterwards, I was annoyed at myself that I did it, you know? Similar as above, name 3 or more things you're proud of in 2022. So I think I'm very proud of the fact that the Townscaper video has been so popular, because it's a niche indie project, but I love that something of that size and scale could achieve numbers alongside Halo Wars 2 or Halo or Forza, all these other very big AAA games that I made. I'm very happy that a video that covers something like that, which was so different from all of these things, could prove so popular and actually resonate with the audience. Like, that's something I'm very proud of, actually. I'm very happy that happened. So yeah, certainly that's something that I'm very pleased about. Let's see, what other 3 or more. So we'll go with 3 things I'm proud of this year. So that's one for certain. Going to develop and actually being able to give a talk that went down well with the audience, but also being able to engage with a lot of developers afterwards who worked at studios. They work at studios, they work on big high profile projects, they work on mobile games, they work on indie games, they work on AAA, and meeting so many people to see the impact that the work I do has on these people. Historically, I've always been quite distant, funnily enough, despite the fact that I'm sitting here on the internet talking and broadcasting myself online. I'm not someone who is proactively social. That's not to say I'm antisocial, not far from it. I'm, what is it you call it? I'm an ambivert. So I'm actually quite an introverted person, but I'm quite extroverted in social situations. And so going to a lot of developer meetups and stuff like that, which I probably should do more of, I don't do that often because I don't know. I'm more happy just to hang out with my friends and do my own thing. So it was kind of nice to get to meet these people, and some people who I've known in the industry for a while and respect and admire, and they're like, "Oh, hey, look at that!" You know, they're talking to me and, excuse me. Oh wow, we just actually had a patron. That's amazing. It was so nice to get to meet these people and get to hear from them and hear their thoughts and also what they value from my work, because it's kind of interesting to see how that came about. So yes, Maccabeus, I think that is. Thank you so much. Also, interestingly, with Patreon, annual patronage is on the up. Less and less people are donating on a monthly basis. They're using the annual thing, where I actually give a discount of around 16%, if I remember right, or 18% on the annual subscription. More and more people are donating annually, and they're just going, here's a chunk of change, go make more videos, which is awesome. Love you. Yeah. The third thing, I quit my job. That's probably the thing I'm most proud of, is that I have been working towards this idea of turning AI in games into the one and only thing that I do. And when I say AI in games, I think about my videos, I think about working with developers, I think about doing client work, consulting on games, doing media work, everything that's under the AI in games banner. This was my goal that I wanted to do. And it's been a difficult thing to get around to doing because I still see myself as a university lecturer. And in my, what was that? Satoru Iwata says, in his business card, he's the president of Nintendo, but in his heart, he's a game developer. In my heart, I'm still a lecturer. And if you've ever, AI in games is kind of the manifestation of my educational aspirations, that I wanted to create an artifact that allows people to learn and engage with this complicated material without me, and to allow them that ability to learn and engage with that material. It has been difficult to reconcile the fact that where my life is going versus where my life was isn't the direction that I originally envisaged. And that ultimately AI in games is going to be the future of it. And so we're kind of making that commitment. Like, I am here now basically saying, like, the last 10 years of my life have been all about being a university lecturer. Then I'm hoping the next 10 years of my life is going to be all about being AI in games. And patrons know a lot already. In January, we're going to have we're going to announce a few things tonight. In January, you're going to get a huge blowout on everything that's happening. There's going to be nothing's going away. There's going to be more, and it's going to be different, and it's going to be fun. So, like, I am now committed to, this is my thing, and I'm going for it. And I'm going to throw my heart and soul into this. And if it blows up, then I don't know. But for the time being, I'm having fun, and I feel personally, I'm still, still get stressed, still get tired from work and everything. I feel more personally satisfied in the work that I'm doing now than I have done in years, because I'm in control of the situation. Yes, there's financial dependency, and that's scary, because it's like, well, shit, I need to be making videos, I need to be producing content. I need to be making money working with companies so that I can pay my bills. I'm actually okay with that right now, because I deliberately went ahead and I've got a little bit of money in the kitty that, as any aspiring business entrepreneur should do, you're not living paycheck to paycheck. You should be living a couple of months paycheck off. So I'm always keeping an eye on that money in the revenue stream, but I'm in control of that situation. And if I need to, I can probably go all out and get more work, So yeah, I think the fact that I'm my own boss and I'm doing my own thing, and god damn it, I'm going to do the best I can. And if it all blows up in my face, then fuck it. That's probably the thing I'm proudest of this year. That was a long answer. Let's get back over here. JS says, thoughts on ChatGPT? I have not had a chance to have a look at it. What I did see of it so far was, once again, like, interestingly, I think with a lot of this stuff, whenever all particularly these big deep learning tools come out with much fanfare, I kind of ignore it when it comes out. I wait a month, and then I wait to see the people that are doing all the due diligence are going, actually, here's the interesting limitations on it. I think it's going to be problematic. Between this and, like, what was it, Facebook's essay writer that came out in the space of a couple of months, each of which had problems, but they are continuing to create circumstances where we are going to manipulate people. And I don't know, I need to have a closer look at ChatGPT to see how effective it is. But I'm an incredible cynic when it comes to a lot of this stuff. I'm interested to see where it all goes in the long run, though. Richard Greenwood says, any thoughts on the AI art and its impact on game developers? So that is another interesting thing that's been going on, like Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, what have you. Seeing this kind of percolate, and also seeing a lot of people talk shit, frankly, about the idea that, this is going to completely change game development. Generative AI is going to change the games industry. It's like, where the fuck have you been for the last 40 goddamn years? Clip that. This has been going on for a long time. One of the things I'm interested in seeing, and interestingly, the handful of game developers I've spoken to are like, this is cool. I don't think it's there yet. And when it is there, it is going to be immensely valuable in ways that I think the armchair general on Twitter doesn't really envisage, because we need to come up with tools and processes that fit game development pipelines. I saw an interesting example where someone was like, I think it was one of the new image generation tools where you can get it to generate a 3D model and it'll texture it. And I looked at it and went, that model would need retopologized. That texture is awful. No one's going to use that in production. So in like kit bashing or rapid prototyping, I can see it being used in that capacity, and I think that's amazing. But a lot of this stuff, even when we talked about texture upscaling in Mass Effect, they get the AI to do all this work. All the artists still go back and clean it up manually. So if we can find ways to use these tools to speed up production, interestingly, in the same way that AI for animation has changed that field quite drastically, but it hasn't removed the need for technical animators, and it hasn't removed the need for animators. Our next video talks about this to some extent, and I'm actually going to dedicate an entire AI 101 episode to this, about how machine learning and deep learning is impacting animation. Like, that, to me, is the interesting part of AI art, where they've got to a point where there's tools and pipelines and processes in place that use AI to make the developers' lives easier rather than trying to replace them. Because if you keep trying to replace them, it's never going to work. And also, I think, interestingly, seeing the reaction from the art community about how these, there's been all these AI artists, they're making their own art. They're not stealing from other people. Bullshit. That's literally what these systems do, is they look at existing examples and then from that they generate their own. And it's interesting to see how quickly the conversation around computational creativity has been ignored. This is the idea of computers that create art. It's an entire scientific field. It has been in existence for like 60 years. I've known people who work in this field for decades. And the conversation has completely ignored them, who are like, we've been looking at this for a long time. And like, how do you support this? Because, machines cannot have the same level of creativity as humans. Their inspirations do not work in a more abstract way, but, they can feed on existing examples. And now we're getting into all sorts of issues with copyright and legal rights to work that's being used in these systems, in much the same way that data sciences have had this challenge now with data protection and GDPR impacting this sort of thing. So I think it's in this really interesting space where a lot of people are talking crap, but I can see the application of it in the long run. And I'm really looking forward to seeing somebody take the time and energy to start figuring out how to put this into an actual proper production pipeline so you could use it in an actual proper game dev project. And I know people are doing it. So I'm interested to see where this goes. I am also interested in doing an episode on AI in games. I was actually working on something like this because I wanted to do an interview with multiple artists to get their opinions on this and see where this technology is going. So yeah, that's kind of where my head is at right now with that sort of thing. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just quickly double checking with the chat because I realized I was missing stuff over in the. By the way, if you are posting questions, don't forget they should go into the Q&A thing, because then that way I can actually see them in the Q&A. Let's see. Blastor14 says, how much do you expect something like AlphaStar or Dota's OpenAI to start showing up in games given the rapid advancements in AI? So this is an interesting body of work that has been going on since then, because fundamentally, the OpenAI 4, is it 4 or 5? Can't remember. And AlphaStar are, from a game production perspective, useless because they are designed to play at a very high level of skill. In fact, funnily enough, GT Sophie this year is also another example of this. It is built to play at the top skill level. It is built to compete against the best of the best of the best of the best, sir. So it's useless in the grand scheme of things, because if you look at a game like Gran Turismo, yes, and all these other games, yes, like the esports community often rallies around these high-profile players. The bulk of the people don't play that well. The bulk of the people just want to play the game. In fact, a lot of people probably, if they're playing StarCraft, maybe they don't even want to play multiplayer. They just want to play the campaign. So how do we get these systems to work at those skill levels? And also, how do we get them resistant to change? One of the unspoken elements of AlphaStar is, so I actually was writing about this in a book chapter I'm working on for a book that I'm not writing. I'm writing a chapter in it. And I know this because I know some people who worked on it. AlphaStar, if you recall, appeared as a publicly playable game in StarCraft 2 for a window. You could play it on the European matchmaking system. It then disappeared after a few weeks. It only then reappeared one time, and it turned up on the show floor at BlizzCon. The version of StarCraft that was running on the show floor of BlizzCon had been rolled back several months to the version that was available when they had the public matchmaking. Why? They patched the game after the window that the Alpha Star was available. When they patched it, it changed the meta. Alpha Star's MMR dropped. And the reason for that is they changed part of the game and the AI doesn't know how to adapt to it. It's a machine learning system that has been trained to solve one job, and that is be the best StarCraft player. But it is being the best player of that version of StarCraft 2. If you change the game, it doesn't adjust. It has to retrain. And that costs thousands, if not millions of dollars. So how do you then compensate for that? And so this has been a whole body of work that's been happening at all these AI startups, but also a lot of the AI R&D teams at like Electronic Arts and Ubisoft and stuff like that, and Microsoft. How can we train systems to have that level of intelligence that are adapting more effectively and more cheaply, but also we can train them at different levels of performance so that a noob, somebody brand new at StarCraft, is playing against a machine learning AI that is interesting, that is effective, but is also deliberately leaving gaps in its performance to allow the player to get better. This is a big thing that people are working on. And I know specifically Sony AI have been actively looking at how they can put GT Sophie into Gran Turismo 7, but it scales up based on your difficulty. So when you play Gran Turismo 7, you play against a whole bunch of clones of GT Sophie that are deliberately scaled to your current skill level. I know this is something they're working on. It's not a solved problem. When they break this, everything will change in my regard. The companies that have the capacity, that have the money to do it, they will start introducing these into their games much more frequently because they've solved that problem. That's the big problem they haven't cracked yet. And so I'm very excited to see where that's going because I know it's something that's actively being researched to much degree. Let's see. I should probably... So I mean, how many more questions have we got here? I got a couple more. Scup says, any plans for a video on one of the Fat Shark Tide games? I actually don't know what that is. Oh, right, like Warhammer Dark Tide? Is that what we mean? Well, one, probably I would like to if I could ever find something out about it. It's probably a little too early, given the game just came out. And also, I'm supposed to go back and actually play it. I noticed we were talking about this in the Discord server. The Xbox Game Pass version has updated. I have not had 5 minutes to go and play it. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow because I'm or I might just buy the freaking game on Steam. Steam sale starts today, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Hang on. I know it starts today because I'm a developer and they still tell me when these things happen. There we go. Steam sale is live. Actually, I'm going to, while I'm here, ignore me. I'm just going to quickly go into my wish list and see. Oh, God damn it. I left my phone in the other room, so I can't use the Steam guard. Well, that's me being told I clearly have to do this later. Never mind. Actually, what I'll do is I'll wait until I get an email, because then Steam's going to email me, and they'll go, oh, hey, like 85,000 games in your wish list are on sale. So yes, hopefully we'll maybe do something like that. Solid Reactor says, sure, fitting to 50%. I forgot to discount it, actually. Besides, I actually reduced the price of it. I think it's like $5 now. Anyway. Avian Overlord says, I was AFK, did he do me? I didn't do your question. I need to go back to do your question. Or if you could actually repost your question, that would be great, because I'd have to scroll back up and I can't remember what it was. So yes, Avian Overlord, please repost your question. In the meantime, I'm going to go over to the Discord. There was a couple in the public part of the Discord that I missed. Bernhard Werner, regular friend of the channel. Basically, do you have an opinion on these new AI ML applications beyond what everyone else has talked about? Not really. I'm interested to... One of the things that for me actually is it's just difficult keeping up because it's not something I actively work on. So I'm constantly trying to just keep up with the state of it all. I'm very interested to see what people, the point I made earlier about people using it in production and figuring out how it fits into pipelines. That's the thing I'm most excited about. And when people start answering that question, that's probably when I'm going to be more excited about it overall, rather than, some, Silicon Valley tech bro just being like, yeah, we solved this problem with deep learning. Like, oh, fuck, here we go, and not again. Avian Overlord. Yeah, what do you think of the possibilities of using machine learning specifically for runtime proc gen in games? My personal reservation is simply the resources required for local use of models. So I think if you're only using if the model is pre-trained and then you're running it, you're just doing inferencing at runtime, I think that's much more attainable. I think the idea of having it adaptive and continuing to train and evolve the model as you're playing, that's probably going to be a more demanding or more difficult thing to do in the long run. Because there's a whole bunch of really interesting work right now on machine learning for procedural content generation. In fact, a bunch of my friends from the academic world just released a new book on the subject. Matthew Guzdio, Adam Somerville, and Sam Snodgrass. I never remember how to actually pronounce Sam's second name. And I think it's literally called Machine Learning, is it Procedural Generation or something like that. I'm going to find that book. I'm quickly just typing in, because I meant to order it and I haven't done it. Procedural Content Generation via Machine Learning. Yep, Matthew, Sam, and Adam Somerville. It just came out literally this month, came out 2 weeks ago. Very excited to check that out, because it's been an ongoing body of work, I think. That's been quite exciting. I think one of the mechanisms to circumvent the training process, and this is a huge game development opportunity if somebody can figure it out, is you run it in the cloud. Much like the way Forza has done this for years. Like, your Forza models are trained on the cloud in a asynchronous fashion from you playing the game. And so I think that's a much more exciting possibility, that people are playing the game and they feed into a neural network that is, or any machine learning model that is evolving and changing and adapting over time, and it is coming up with new solutions. Because if it's just training up in the cloud, then it just goes, all right, well, the network is, here's the updated network. It's only a certain size. We'll pass it down to you as an update. And so it could be that, the model got patched, and so every couple of hours it just goes, we're downloading a quick hot patch, and it's like 10 megabytes or something, because it just patches the existing copy of the model that it has locally. To me, that's a huge deal if they could figure out how to make that part of an actual game in an interesting, scalable way. It's a bit of a risk, though, because it's a lot of money trying to make something like that a reality, I think. Let's see. Greg over in the Discord said, with the recent advancements in generative AI, it would seem AI prototyping tools for dialogue, voice, textures, models, animations, and worlds will be standard in the industry in the midterm future. Probably. How do you think this will impact games that are made? What things would you like to see? I think one of the fundamental problems that game development has, and we're seeing more and more of it, and I think the pandemic has really highlighted it more than anything, and it is an idiom that everyone should know. Making games is difficult, and making games is becoming increasingly more challenging. And so if we can find tools and solutions and this is the big problem, to support developers to do their work better, that is really where we should be going with this. More often than not, that's not where they go with it. Big AAA companies will go, we can use it to replace the developer, or some of them will. Rhymes with cactus fission, I suspect. So, but that's where I think the end game is, where we're seeing all these tools are being used to facilitate developers, and particularly, and this is also another one, which this is a long run, because someone needs to go out and build the tools for it. If you can make the stuff available to smaller indie studios, it can expedite production, and it can enable them to get good enough quality assets at scale that they wouldn't get otherwise. Now, it might mean that we're now going to go through an era of a lot of games with shonky AI voices, but it enables for a small indie, even a one-person development team to go off and make something and get all these voices in their game when previously they couldn't. That'd be amazing, So I think that's kind of the end game, is we keep finding ways to support developers and allow for their jobs to be easier. That, to me, is the most sensible goal. Also, thank you to Dave Thomas for that super chat you sent over. He says, can't really think of a question, but just wanted to say thanks for all the work you've done over the year and previous. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. Let's see. I think there's still a couple in... I'm juggling between 3 different places where I've got questions. J. Delabeat says, did any student lead you on a tangent just because you covered a topic on your channel? So funnily enough, when I started doing the YouTube channel when I was at Derby University, funnily enough, the videos were actually emerging as sort of an adaptation of lectures that I gave. So, and I'm prone to going off on tangents as it is, which is quite bad. I'm prone to ramble, as you might have discovered tonight. I don't, so that there, but then funnily enough, when I left Derby, I've actually always tried to keep a distance between my YouTube side of what I do and my educational side. And in fact, when I started at King's, I tried to keep it quiet. Funnily enough, I think I was at King's for all of a couple of weeks, and one of the students was like, I found you on YouTube. I'm like, oh, motherfucker. So I kind of try to go more. I try to stay away from it. Sometimes students do raise questions, but particularly when I was at King's, given I didn't teach game development, I was like, see me after, ask me later. So yeah, I can't think of an example off the top of my head. J. Delaby also says, what are your experiences working on Intel? I can't say a whole lot because I'm under NDA on a lot of it. Critically, I think I can just talk a little bit about what my job was. So this was a couple of years ago, and I was working with the Intel gaming team. And we were working alongside the Intel AI team. And it was really just about helping the Intel AI and gaming sides of the company figure out how they could work together. Because the Intel AI people were all AI developers and researchers. The Intel gaming team were game developers and product managers who support game development. They didn't really... my job was essentially to be the middleman between these two sides of this big corporation, which in hindsight was freaking terrifying. But I was pitching product ideas and also giving feedback on ideas that they were working on. And I know some of them, they actually subsequently, I think, did and shipped. So that's quite exciting. But I can't say much more than that, I'm afraid. Let's see what else we got. Oh no, I've jumped forward. No, that was a bit premature. Don't do that yet. Let's see. Where am I going? Patreon side of the Discord server. Happy Pie again, after he sent me 800 questions. Have you had any surprises or opportunities you did not see coming? What were those? So the NVIDIA thing, I think was like, that was okay. I was literally planning on taking time off, and actually one of the most difficult parts of working on that video was I actually made half the video while I was in Scotland because I was visiting family and I went to a wedding. And so I'm like reading up on all these like white papers on how DLSS 3 works and writing the episode before I got access to the graphics card or the demos, and then came home and played a whole bunch of games and recorded all of it. And then I'm like, I've got to put together this whole video in like a couple of days sort of thing. So yeah, but it was an interesting opportunity and I'm glad I did it. The situation at Spilt Milk, I guess, is also a weird one. I wasn't expecting that. And yeah, I mean, it's been quite a surprise. I thought, oh, I might go and do more work in a studio, but oh, hey, would you mind coming in this like senior position in a studio? And that was not something I anticipated at all. And it was a little intimidating as well, because being an academic, sure, you work as part of a team in the department. I'm used to kind of working by myself these days. And even with my consultancy, I work with studios and I work with teams, and, working with these people and communicating with them is critical. It's the thing that is so important to my job, that I communicate well. But being in a position where I am effectively managing people, that's not something I have done in a very long time, actually. So that was a little intimidating. How does it take me this long to drink the first glass? I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay on until I finish the whole bottle, because I've only just had that much. And I've already been on now for nearly 2 hours. This is redonkulous. There we go. Okay. Flanger. Oh, that's good. Happy Pie, you sent like 8,000 questions. And then there's a particular angle to a lot of these as well. And I know you want to ask this stuff, and the answer is not right now, but we'll maybe come back to it in a bit. What else is happening in the chat? I need to double check on the chat. Let's go, 12-hour stream. No, Happy Pie. No. / Solid Reactor. No. I got to sleep. I gotta be a good boy for Santa and other fictional characters. Like Jesus. No, that's fine. And Spider-Man. And Veer Chanderman says, what technical / engineering topic would you like to go more in depth in, but the YouTube algorithm / format prohibits you from doing? Actually, this also kind of answers Happy Pie / Solid Reactor's question. So interestingly, if we actually, you know what? Let's jump back a few slides on the presentation and go back to that for a second. You'll notice those numbers are not going up. They're going down. And critically, you'll notice there's a big difference between 2020 and 2022. But the video difference isn't massive. The difference of a handful of videos, but the numbers are down quite a bit. I've observed, and certainly I've noticed other people have said the same thing. If you're not a top tier creator, YouTube has actually been a very bad space to be in since the pandemic started. And a lot of that is because people might, so first of all, the way that YouTube works, about 90% of all traffic on YouTube goes to the top 2% of creators. So, of course, during the pandemic, that kind of exacerbates that. But also, there was a lot of new content coming out on YouTube around that era. And sure, a lot of people creating their own content, going and making new channels because they've got nothing else to do. They've been furloughed. They're like, I'm going to go make YouTube videos about something that's I'm passionate about. I can't question that because, you know, fucking, that's what I do. But one of the things that has happened that had a really negative effect was we had all these celebrities and other high profile people creating YouTube content because they had nothing else to do. And I think that helped skew the circumstance quite drastically, to the point that people who are like me, I think I'm at that point now where I'm no longer a big fish in a small pond. I'm a small fish in the ocean, where my YouTube isn't really growing anymore. It's growing at a smaller rate, but you know, you look at that in 2019 and in 2020, I made 2 million and 3 million views. And then in the last 2 years, I've barely made the same amount of views that I did in 2019. And so I think YouTube itself, particularly when I was focused on getting the numbers in because I was financially dependent on it, that was a big impact. So that is a problem. I think also fundamentally to do, like, as we know, YouTube is not financially sustainable, which is why I have went away and orchestrated this whole scenario for myself. Now, one of the things that Solid Reactor / Happy Pie has been asking me about is doing videos that are learning material. And this is actually a goal that I've had for myself I do want to do, where I actually teach on YouTube. People talk about, why don't you do things like Coursera or making product, like making learning material, tutorials, lectures, that sort of thing. That is an idea that I've had for a very long time. And in fact, at one point earlier this year, I was seriously contemplating it. I actually went away and did the work. I went away and did the due diligence and figured out the economics of it. So I actually went away and said to myself, if I was going to do this, what does it look like? And so I put together a whole syllabus. I sat and wrote out the whole thing. I looked at every textbook that I would rip from, and it's like, what are the topics that I would cover? How long would I need to cover it for? What are the key points that I would need to express? And then for me, I went and figured out, roughly how many hours of content that would be. And when I got over 100, I kind of gave up counting because I realized in order for this to work, this entire video course experiment, I would have to get finances. I'd need to get funding in the tens of thousands of dollars in order to make it work. And I'd actually need a team to help me make it work, because we'd have to have editors, we need to have people that are working production, people that are helping me in all these other assets. And to this day, I make all this by myself. I hire in the odd person to do a bit of art for me, but I do day-to-day production. All the videos are made, recorded, edited by me alone. That, to get to that level is not something I'm in a position I can do. The only way that I figured it out was I'd have to kickstart it. Because releasing videos bit by bit and hoping that the algorithm supports me enough that I can do it. I mean, you know, again, I'm indebted to the Patreon community. Thank you all so much. I love you all. You don't give me enough money to go off and make this, because I sat and figured it out. And I think I would actually need to get probably 4 to 5 times what my Patreon pays in 1 year just to do what I think was the first 30 to 40 hours of the content, just to get that up and running. I sat and did the math, and I figured out I'd need to hire someone to do this, because we'd need to have a certain amount of cadence of the releases, and we want to have it all out in a certain window. So I went away and did the math, and I figured it out. And I know what if I did my show and I did my educational series, what would it be? And critically, as we went forward into this new era, I am not burning myself out. I am not working overtime. I am not burning the midnight oil. Maybe sometimes. But in general, I am trying to taking a better stab at my own work-life balance and my health. If I did this, I'd fall back into the same routine unless we got funding. And funnily enough, I've had a couple of companies reach out to me going, yo, we'd help finance you and do this. But they were sketchy and I didn't trust them. And so I've just like, no, I'm good. Thanks, but no thanks. So particularly to one of the questions there is, you know, will we also have some directed vids or learning material leaning towards learning, like classes or tutorials in theoretical and perhaps even practical senses? So that was from Happy Pie over in the Discord. I went away and figured out what are the theoretical videos I would make for a given topic, what are the practical videos for a given topic, what the tutorials would look like, what if I wanted to show you how to do this in Unreal Engine, what if I wanted to show you how to do this in Unity, what would those things look like? And then what are the coding infrastructures that I have to build? Because I'd essentially have to start building libraries of code that would allow me to do all this. I spent about maybe 2 weeks in the summer trying to figure all that out, and I wrote it all down. So I have a very good idea of what I would do. And then also looking at how can we use, you know, the machine learning agents toolkit in Unity? What if we use the machine learning framework in Unreal Engine 5? What if we trained neural nets using, I don't know, let's train some stuff using, you know, just whatever base Python libraries, PyTorch, you know, that sort of thing. But also, how do we do bog standard AI steering behaviors and all that sort of stuff? I went away and thought about it. We're not there yet. I would love to do it. We're not financially at a point we can get away with it. But never say never, because I would still love to do it. That is a goal that I have, and like I said, AI in games is going to be hopefully the next 10 years, so I'm hoping we can actually get to that point. So yeah, bit of a sad answer, but hopefully it does answer it. Yeah, actually, people talking about how YouTube is talking about the state of YouTube. And also, interestingly, talking about online tutorials. Like, I think online tutorials are great. I personally don't use them that much. Like programming tutorials, I read from books. I read documentation. I very rarely watch videos on how to do stuff. I don't know. It's just I'm old fashioned. Like my brain is just like, I don't want to listen to you talk for 20 minutes to get to the point. Show me the damn code and I'll reverse engineer it myself. That's how I work as a programmer. Or give me the API and I'll figure it out. And I've, interestingly, because I've worked in game development and I've worked on porting games onto consoles, I've done a bunch of work on like porting games to Xbox and the Switch. You don't get online tutorials doing that because you'd break an NDA doing it. So quite often it's like, welcome to game development on the Switch. Here's the documentation. Off you fuck, go and port it. And you have to learn that yourself. And so on one hand, I'm not saying that's great because it was actually very difficult, but you know, yeah, it is what it is. But also when I used to do tutorials years ago and they impacted my channel negatively. Like, I used to lose subs, I used to lose views every month whenever I put one out. Oh, excuse me a second. And I remember talking with I haven't spoken to them in a long time, but technically I have a YouTube partner manager. Someone at YouTube who's supposed to check in with me when there's a problem. They haven't spoken to me in about 2.5 years. I think they spoke to me when I got around 100,000 subs. They're like, hello, here's your partner manager. And then they never spoke to me again. Don't know what I did to offend them. But anyway, one of the things they noticed was like, oh yeah, these tutorial videos actively harm your channel because the algorithm doesn't understand the difference between tutorial video that is meant to be informative and educational to the rest of your content, which is technically a gaming video. It's like, well, they're both kind of the same thing. They're both informative and educational, but YouTube doesn't categorize them. That's a tutorial. That's a gaming video. And so the algorithm just gets very confused by it. And then it often doesn't recommend any of my tutorials because it goes, well, no, he makes gaming videos. Or actually it impacts the recommendation systems. So yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. And as part of my research, I came up with the channel. In fact, I own the channel. I own the handle. So when I make the channel, it's already there and I know what I'm calling it. And interestingly, because recently YouTube has just created handles. So now if you go into the YouTube channel, you'll notice on the homepage, it now has the @AIinGames. And that is my handle. So if you go to youtube.com/@AIinGames, it will always go to my channel now, which is great because the channel URL was a bloody nightmare. I deliberately made sure I got the handles for 2 other projects, one of which you're going to hear about tonight. The other one, that's the secret one. Guilherme Pereira Melo says, creators should be able to tag to the algorithm the kinds of videos they upload. Yes, we should have more interaction with that system, and we don't. And even to this day, when I ask questions about how can we mitigate this, they give me some woolly bullshit answer. And it's like, well, yeah. Let's see. Walter says, I used to watch a lot of tutorials, but now I like to read docs as well. I mean, to each your own. I don't judge. I've made tutorial videos over the years that people have watched and people have liked. So, I'm not judging. Like, some people like to hear, and particularly my tutorials are pretty much built like how I used to run lectures. I just sit down with the code and I walk through it and I explain what I'm doing. Some people really like that. Solid Reactor says, or become a patron and learn about these new secret things. I'm sorry, I've told you all about one big secret thing. In fact, if you were on the Patreon, the Discord, the Patreon part of the Discord server, I dropped a huge amount of information about what's happening next year today. They've already had 2 big info dumps. The secret thing I'm not going to share with you just yet because it's just not ready. So I am sorry. But you already know what's happening on AIinGames and what's happening on the other one. Yeah. Other questions. Keep them coming. I'm doing all right. Jadella Beat says, a sort of odd question, and that isn't related to AI. What are your favourite comic runs? So yes, some of you might have gathered that is a comic book collection. If I wasn't going to do a video series on AIinGames, I probably would have became someone who made videos about comic books, because that is my crutch. I love comic books. I also previously used to work in a comic book store when I was in grad school. And that, you know, like what they say about drug dealers don't get high on their own supply. Right. Comic book store staff don't work like that. We get high on that supply. And it is incredibly dangerous, because I'm pretty sure I only read about 5 or 6 different comics on the regular when I started there. And when I came out, I had a crippling addiction, and now I read everything. But yeah, some good ones. Let me think. I don't know what my best ones of all time are. Just some ones off the top of my head. Just looking at this at the set. I mean, I think without talking about the big 2, which is Marvel and DC, if you look at some of the indie stuff, there's a lot of really good, interesting, finite storytelling, which is one of the great things about all the other, because all the Marvel and DC never end. They just continue to perpetuate. Oh, Batman died, but it's all right. He's going to come back because actually the Omega Beam sent him all the way back into the past. Now he's got to fight all the way back through the future so he can then take over his own body and return back to the present day. You're like, okay, Captain America did exactly the same thing like 2 years ago. Okay, good job, Grant Morrison. But a lot of the indie stuff is really good because you just get a nice, complete story. And it doesn't have to be superheroes as well. Just looking, generally Invincible. I'm a very big fan of Invincible, which I don't think you can see it slightly off camera. But yeah, actually, Invincible is currently a TV show. They made it's an animated series on Amazon. Go watch the first season. It's really good. I was very impressed. And interestingly, as a fan of the book who's read the entire story, because this is the last volume of the book, I was like, oh, it'd be really great if they end the first season with this big plot point. And it was great. They did it. They actually did it. And I really enjoyed it. So I'm but they also changed it to make it more interesting or to streamline it a little bit for the animated series. Great stuff. Really enjoyed it. Let's see. Actually, I've got I was going to say, a vast majority of my comics are digital now, but I still have a lot of physical stuff. I've actually sold quite a lot of this collection in the last few years because it takes up a lot of space. But hang on. Oh, there it is. So for many years, I said to people that I knew Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning's run of Guardians of the Galaxy, a comic most people had never heard of because it was a bunch of superheroes from the 70s that nobody'd read about for decades. It's like, this thing is amazing. You need to go and read it. It is so good. And then fast forward a couple of years, Marvel make a movie of it. And I remember people going, Guardians of the Galaxy? And I remember when they announced it, people going, what the fuck is Guardians of the Galaxy? And I'm like, oh my God, they're doing a movie of the Guardians of the Galaxy. There's a lot of other runs since, because when the movie blew up, they've then tried to like reframe the Guardians of the Galaxy to be much more prominent characters in the Marvel Universe. Particularly Brian Bendis' run. I like Brian Bendis, but no, fuck off, that run isn't very good. Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning's complete run on Guardians of the Galaxy right after Annihilation Conquest. Fantastic stuff. So good. Somebody just mentioned Planetary and the Authority. I do have the complete collection of the Authority somewhere. That's also very good. McFarlane's Spawn. I've got some Spawn in here somewhere. Yep. So I really loved early Spawn. Like, so funnily enough, when I was in my teens, I used to read Judge Dredd, X-Men, Spider-Man, and a bit of Batman. And then I've discovered Spawn in the late 90s and fell in love with it. It's had its problems, but I think that first 100-issue run right up to its issue 100 in Spawn is brilliant. And it's been all right in different phases, I think, over the years. But regarding finite runs, it's off camera. Ex Machina by Brian K. Vaughan, which is all about a superhero who can talk to technology, who is actually trying to become the mayor of New York, and he's failing at it because he's an idiot and he sucks. But 9/11 happens, and his ability to talk to technology stops one of the planes hitting one of the two towers, and so he saves a lot of people, and he wins, and he becomes mayor of New York. And it's actually a story about how he tries to get by being a prolific politician without using his superpowers. While also it kind of ties back to a lot of narratives of when he was a superhero. Really good book, loved it. What else we got in here? Walking Dead's generally fine. Mortal Iron Fist, which is funny because if you think about the Netflix show, everyone hates it. Mortal Iron Fist by Ed Brubaker, Matt Fraction, and drawn by David Aja. Amazing. 7 Cities of Heaven. Absolutely love that storyline. See what else we got. Oh, DMZ, which is a story. I think they're turning that into a show on Amazon, I think. It's a story about an American Civil War in which Manhattan becomes a demilitarized zone, much like Escape from New York almost, the movie. Really good book, really enjoyed that. Scalped, which is a crime thriller that takes place on a Native American reserve. Dashiell Badhorse, which is still the coolest name for a main character in a story I've ever heard, written by Jason Aaron, who subsequently then became very famous and popular over at Marvel. He's written Wolverine, but more often than not, he currently writes Avengers, or I think he's actually ending his Avengers run. Most people know him as the guy that wrote Thor for the last few years. And if you go and see like Thor Love and Thunder, which was a film that I thought was crap and I hated it, a lot of the stuff like Gore the God Butcher, Jane Foster as Thor, all comes from his comic run, which is superb. So damn good. I love Jason Aaron's work. More recently, Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on Black Panther was amazing. Absolutely adored it. Particularly the intergalactic Empire of Wakanda storyline was just okay. Really enjoyed that. No other stuff is there. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. I'm really enjoying X-Men at the moment. So I'm an X person. That's my bread and butter is the X-Men, and particularly Jonathan Hickman's run on the Power of X run of the story, or Power of 10, Age of 10 story, in which they've completely redefined what the X-Men is for the modern era. Absolutely loving it. Absolutely loving it. That is the biggest shot in the arm that the X-Men has had in like 30 years, and it is long overdue. X-Men was generally good, I think, in the early 2000s, around the Grant Morrison, Joss Whedon era. It struggled after that because Marvel didn't want to make X-Men popular anymore because Fox owned all the licenses to the movies while Avengers was making money hand over fist. I think the most recent X-Men stuff has been amazing. Yes, as J. Delabeat says, the Krakoa era of X-Men. I just finished reading Ten of Swords and the Hellfire Gala. Like literally, I've got the omnibus editions of those. I literally finished reading the Hellfire Gala like 2 nights ago. And I'm in the middle of reading Inferno. So I'm a little bit behind because I always read in the collected trades these days. I don't buy individual issues. Let's see, quickly catching up with the chat. David Thomas says, I want to see Planetary and Authority as an animated series. I think that would be an amazing series. Also, it's kind of funny if you like Planetary and Authority, because then you go and read the Ultimates, which then became essentially the template for the modern Avengers movies, which it's interesting. I reread the Ultimates recently. It doesn't age particularly well. I generally like Mark Millar's work, but he can land himself in problems over the years. Let's see. Walter says, your series on Total War and your CNC video really inspired me while creating an AI for my own strategy game. Thanks for that. That's amazing. Congratulations. Keep going. I hope it's going well. That sounds awesome. God, I feel like I could actually have just spent another hour just talking about all the comics I really like. I'm struggling a little bit to focus. Oh God, Ed Brubaker's Captain America run. So good. Nobody's done a good Captain America run since then has been worth it. And also, if you don't read the books, that's where the Winter Soldier comes from. Fantastic stuff. Like that original him and Butch Joyce work is, I don't know how to pronounce his surname. Batwoman. The Batwoman stuff by J.H. Williams and and Greg Rucka as well. I love Greg Rucka's stuff. He did a run on The Punisher not that long ago that I loved. Batman, I've read a lot of Batman. Interestingly, I do think Tom King's recent run on Batman is post in the rebirth era of DC was really good. But Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's work in the New 52, generally the DC New 52 isn't worth reading. For anyone not familiar, DC destroyed their entire universe and rebuilt it as 52 new comic books to reset the entire continuity, except they didn't. A lot of them aren't very good. Most of the New 52 isn't really worth reading. Animal Man, I think, is probably one of them. Maybe. Yeah, Animal Man's good. But Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Batman run is just chef's kiss. And also, I like Scott Snyder's original work on the Batman, the Black Mirror. But Greg Capullo, who was the artist on Spawn in the 90s, I was like, because Greg Capullo kind of fell by the wayside for a few years, and I was so happy to see him back because that comic became huge. It was like the #1 seller. People loved it. And I'm like, Greg Capullo is back on top. I love that guy. He's awesome. And his work is amazing. So I was so happy to see him up there. Solid Reactor says, let's make a video about you trying to make a comic book generating AI. Oh dear. Scott says, you have a lot of Iron Brew to get through. F it and keep talking about comics. But yeah, I'm an X-Men guy through and through. Really enjoying Jason Aaron's Avengers run at the moment. Trying to think. A lot of the stuff I don't have in physical form anymore, but I do keep in digital form, at least. Because I've got stuff like, I've got The Walking Dead, I've got Preacher, I've got Why the Last Man and stuff. Funnily enough, like probably one of the ones that a lot of people will mention that I'm not a big fan of is Sandman. I never got into Sandman. And I've tried. I've tried starting reading Sandman 3 times. And I've probably read the first 24 comics in the series. I keep trying to give it a shot. Just doesn't click with me. Just doesn't click with me. Don't know why. Let's see. Oh, there's a bunch of stuff coming up in the... William says, thank you for pointing me to that book. Good stuff. Yes, David Thomas, DC destroying their universe repeatedly and retconning it. It's like, stop doing it. Just... Comic books have a huge problem in the fact that they are not willing to make... If they're going to make destructive behavior, commit to it. Because they're so scared. What you see now with Star Wars, I think, is actually a very good example of the behavior of Star Wars right now is the microcosm of what's been happening to comic books for like 40 years. Because comic books doesn't appeal to kids anymore. The average comic book reader is probably my age, and I'm in my late 30s. And so now all they're trying to do is make books for children that appeal to 40, 50, 60-year-old people. Because that's not how we did it. It's like, you got to change it up. There was I can't remember who it was that said it. I remember an interview once where someone said, like, comic books are fundamentally, particularly superhero comics, are fundamentally stories that always end up in a circle. Their character will always start in one place and they will take them out and they'll go through this huge experience and then they'll come back to where they started. The trick is to make that journey as entertaining as possible. But for the reader, they have to reconcile that, but also the trapping that they have is it always has to close the circle. What would be great sometimes is if they just didn't close the circle. Because like this is why things like Spider-Man's marriage has been retconned and like DC resets its universe every 12 minutes because they got a bit... Peter Parker shouldn't be married. Peter Parker should be like this struggling guy always trying to get by and find a girl and look after his Aunt May and whatever. It's like, he's like 80 years old at this point. And you'd think with Miles Morales becoming increasingly more prominent, they would actually commit to that and let Spider-Man grow up a little bit. Not really done that. Richard Greenwood says, have you picked up the new Marvel Midnight Suns game? My plan is to do that in the next week and finally play it, because I was kind of holding off on it and going, I don't think I'll pick it up. And then all the reviews came out and went, this is the surprise, like, great, best game of the year. Like, what? So I'm very excited. Jade Ellerbeat says, this is why the Ultimate Universe is great. I mean, it's been dead for a while now. For anyone not familiar, the Ultimate Universe was a separate universe in the Marvel Universe in which they said, what happens if all these characters that you know started again, but it was the year 2000? So Ultimate Spider-Man, which is where Miles Morales comes from, was, what if Peter Parker was 14, 15 years old in the year 2000 and got bit by the spider? And so they, at one point, the Ultimate Universe, and they did like Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimates, which was the Ultimate Avengers, the Ultimate Fantastic Four. At one point, the Ultimate comics were more popular than the mainstream Marvel universe. And there was actually a worry that they were going to shutter off the original universe and only sell the Ultimate comics because they were selling so well. So yeah. Who are some of your favourite pencilers? Says, we're going completely off the reservation, but I'm digging this. Greg Capullo, certainly. John Romita Jr. is without a doubt probably my favourite artist of all time. It doesn't matter what he's drawing. It doesn't matter what product. It's like, oh, he's drawing characters that I don't really care for. John Romita Jr. is drawing it. I'm buying it. Daniel Acuna, more recently. I really like his work. Chris Bacallo. Trying to think of a few others off the top of my head. Chris Bacallo's run on Bacallo, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, on Doctor Strange from a couple of years ago with Jason Aaron. Oh, gorgeous. Absolutely loved that. I'm trying to think, who else do I quite like? Those were the few that came up off the top of my head. Clay Mann, who's also a more modern contemporary artist. His work on Heroes in Crisis for DC. Oh, so good. Again, one of those artists. It's, he's drawing it. I'll maybe go and pick that up. Yeah, that's the first ones that come up at the top of my head. But yeah, Adam Kubert, probably also to some extent. Andy and Adam Kubert, when they worked together. Vincent, have you read The Killing Joke? Of course. I've probably there's not a lot of high profile Batman stories I haven't read at this point. Yeah, David Thomas says Vertigo was similarly the best DC comics, and then they shuttered it. But yes. Yeah, Vincent, yeah, David, yeah, apparently Marvel Sons is really good. All the reviews I read were like, it's really good. And then I spoke to a couple of people who've played it, and they're like, you need to go play this. It's basically Fire Emblem Three Houses, but with Marvel characters. That was the pitch I was given. But, okay. Solid Reactor says, you weren't lying about making comic YouTube if not for AI. One of the funny things when I went to go and get a job in a comic book store was when I got interviewed at the time by the store owner, Callie Pada, who I believe still runs the Forbidden Planet in Edinburgh in Scotland. One of the things she asks everyone is, you need to have a thing. What's the one thing? Because they critically need, every member of staff has to have a geeky thing that they love more than anyone else, and that's critical to them running the shop because they need people around to do that. And it was like, what's your thing? And I says, I'm probably a Marvelite more than I'm a DC person, but I said, X-Men. She's like, really? Like, how much? And I says, I've pretty much read every major storyline of X-Men from the 70s onwards. I've read all... There's not much X-Men I've missed, certainly since about 1988. But I didn't start reading comics until like 1995. I went back and read everything from about Fall of the Mutants onwards. So X-Men is my bread and butter. I know more about X-Men than I should. So that's my passion. I could talk about X-Men all day long. But yeah, I know a lot of stuff, and I know far too much. I've probably forgotten more now about comics than I actually remember. But yeah. Anywho, we went down a whole thing there. Can I just say, touch wood, I'm surprised my internet's held up. Okay. Checking through. I think we've answered all the questions. If there's any more, we'll answer them. If not, we'll begin to move towards the wrap-up, because we've been doing this for nearly 2.5 hours, and we've got a few announcements to make anyway. Where am I looking? Yeah, I think that's everything that was in the Discord. Yeah, J Delabeat, this is no longer an AI in-game stream. This is just Tommy's talking, shut up and listen. That should be what the other channel's called. Tommy's talking, shut up and listen. Okay, what we'll do is we'll end the Q&A part, because we've done them. Am I able to... Oh, right. What happens if I select the question? What does that do? Oh, I was supposed to do this, and then it actually appears. Ah, that's quite cute. I didn't know that. Womp womp. And, okay. Well, we did it. Oh, no, now I need to figure out how to undo it. Yep. We've done it. Right, we'll end the Q&A at that point. Any further questions, just stick them in the main chat. JDL Beat says, my favourite artist right now is Darren Johnson. His art on Wonder Woman, Dead Earth, and Beta Ray Bill. No, I don't know that person. I don't think. Actually, who was the one that I really liked? So I just bought a book recently. And I haven't even read it yet, but I just loved the art on it. Where was it? Yeah. So I just bought this. Was it Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow? Which I just love this art. I had a look at, I saw a couple of the some of the pages of this just bouncing around on social media, and not a big Supergirl fan, but I just saw it and was like, oh my god, this art is gorgeous. What is this? Who is doing it? And it's written by Tom King, whose work I really like. And I was like, right, that's it, purchased. Immediately jumped on Amazon, like, get that book in my cart. Oh, who's the Russell Doterman? That's another artist I really like. He's the fella who drew an awful lot of the Mighty Thor with Jason Aaron. There we go. Guilherme says, I'm going into web backend and I'd like to know if there were any AIs really useful for this area. I don't know. I haven't worked in web backend stuff in about a dozen years, so I'm very much out of the loop on that, I'm afraid. Sorry, can't be of much help there. Jade Elbeat says, Supergirl Women of Tomorrow is so good. Great. I'm very excited to read it. I also just got the Batman Catwoman collected edition, which is also Tom King. I'm reading a lot of Tom King because he's really good. So yeah, that just arrived in the post like yesterday. That was a late birthday gift to myself because I had a bit of credit on my Amazon account. Someone sent me a voucher. I was like, yep, comics. Dina Kane says, can I have some tea, please? We're fresh out of tea here. I'd have to go boil the kettle. We'd have to. That's an ASMR video for you. Oh God, that was this year, wasn't it? I made the ASMR video as the April Fool's joke, didn't I? That was this year, wasn't it? I can't remember. That was so long ago. I think it was. Can I just say my partner hated that? She heard it. She saw me do it. And then afterwards was like, I hate you. Don't ever do that. Why? I said, what if that becomes super popular and I end up making more money doing ASMR? My partner was like, no. Just do your dumb, silly, nerdy AI videos. Don't go into ASMR. I'm like, okay. So there you go. Yeah, we're fresh out of tea. I'm almost out of whiskey too, but there's plenty of Iron Brew. Half a freaking bottle of it. I'm not going to drink any more of it because it's already pushing 9:30. I'm going to be climbing off the ceiling tonight. My partner's going to be in bed going, would you just get down? I'm swinging around like a lunatic. Like, let's go on an adventure. Do you want to know about the AI of fear? No, fuck off. Go to bed. Okay. To be fair, that's like a lot of the conversations in my house. It's like, I learned something really nerdy about the development of this game. Partner's like, don't care. Can I just say, in general, my partner is very supportive of a lot of the work I do, but they're not a gamer. So they play a handful of games, but they're generally not interested. So it's like, I get that. No, a Solid Reactor actually has an answer for Guilherme. Jin says, what's the best AI of all the games you've seen? I don't know. This is a question that comes up every Q&A, and I don't really have an answer for it, because it's really just about how well does it facilitate the game and the design of the game that they're working for. And so, you know, if you think about it in the sense of it's working to facilitate the fiction of and the power fantasy of the game, excuse me, you know, stuff. You know, you see games like Fear, you see games like Doom, you see Alien Isolation. They attain their design goals. They're not the most complex AIs, but in games they seldom are. The less complex AIs actually have, well, they're still relatively complex, but they use a lot of smoke and mirrors and cheats and what have you to facilitate the design. I think that's always one of the interesting things, particularly because I do, as part of my consultancy, I sometimes talk to people who don't work in games. I'm trying to explain to them what AI in games is like versus the rest of the time. And they're like, oh, right, I didn't quite understand that's how games work. That we're actually, you're not making games you don't make AI for games to be intelligent, you make AI for games to be interesting. And that's a different problem. Solid Reactor says, my situation with my partner, same in my house. Unless what I do is shiny enough, I have 15 seconds to explain before her stare becomes critical. I literally did this today. I actually had something. You're going to see this thing in a couple of minutes. I was like, here, check this thing out. I had to make sure that I played it at 1.5 speed, because if we run out of time, she's going to get bored and walk away. David Thomas says, could you conceive of an AI with a drop-in modular approach? You need pathfinding. Here, use this. Like, I think there's always a lot of character behavior in games is this mishmash of all these different systems and components, and getting them all to talk together and work together is always like super critical, I think. Oh, Greg's saying doesn't have access to the. Oh, right. Oh, that's a Discord problem. I need to sort that out for later. But yeah, I'll fix that in a little bit. Richard Greenwood says, was there a single AI breakthrough you think was the most key? The AI director / DM feels like it to me. I think the director is very interesting in that it's one of the first times that you saw AI being used in a very different way, in a way that people didn't envisage, because it's a finite state machine. It's just using the same AI framework as the likes of Half-Life, but it's using it for drama management, which is such a fresh concept. I think, interestingly, you see stuff like Left 4 Dead, and actually, you see stuff like Facade. I think Facade, as a drama management framework, has had a bigger impact on the games industry than it did for their for the work that it did in natural language and interaction. I think the drama management aspect of that game is the thing that has had a bigger impact on the industry than anything else. And you know, I made a video about it, and it's interesting to see how much that game still resonates with so many people. Some people treat it as a YouTube let's play fodder, but a lot of people are like, oh man, like they still talk about it very fondly. But yeah, like that's an interesting kind of perspective, I think, particularly looking at directors and stuff. Kevin Oldman says, is there a current game AI Bible? No. There's a bunch of different books I would recommend. Hang on. Let me grab them. Not because I just have them all lying around ready to go, because these are what I researched from. So if you're doing AI in general, I would always recommend Artificial Intelligence: A Modern Approach by Peter Russell and Stuart Norvig. That is the definitive AI Bible. But for game AI, it's kind of broken up into different things. I think from a technical perspective, if you're learning to program a lot of granular behavior, AI for Games by Ian Millington. This is the 3rd edition. But also look at Programming Game AI by Example by Matt Buckland. Just show that for a second there. That's Programming Game AI by Example by Matt Buckland. This is a really good project. It's a little older, but also a lot of the code is written in C++. So it depends on your mileage with that. This one's a little bit less C++y, but it's also more pervasive. It covers a lot of different ground. I'd also highly recommend reading all the Game AI Pro books. All the Game AI Pro chapters are available for free online. Just go to gameaipro.com. But they started re-releasing them all because the books aren't available, but they started re-releasing them in these smaller collections. And these are edited by Steve Rabin, who is one of the guys I work with on the Game AI Summit Advisory Board. So have a look at those. Also, keep an eye out for a book that I can't mention the name of, which it will be coming probably in the first volume. It will be coming in 2023, which is a similar nature to Game AI Pro. And I was lucky enough to be invited to write the opening chapter of one of them. So I will announce that when it comes out. I think I will make about 2 pence for every 100 copies sold, which, whatever. It was just, I got to write the book chapter and that was fun. Paul Mann says, have you ever analysed the AI of a grand strategy game like Stellaris or Total War? And particularly with a reference there to Total War Warhammer. So there you go. Can tell how long you've been watching. Jump back into go to the YouTube channel, go and look in the backlog, and you need to go from episodes 21 through 25, which is on, I cover Total War, Shogun Total War, Medieval Total War, Empire Total War Shogun 2, Total War Attila, and Total War Warhammer. So I did a lot of Total War at one point. And actually, in the AI 101 on utility AI, I talk a little bit about Total War Three Kingdoms. And there's a good chance I'm probably going to be talking about Total War again sometime in the future for reasons I can't talk about yet. So, yes, I have talked about Total War, but I have never talked about or even looked at Stellaris. So there you go. Right, we're out of whiskey. So this night's over. It's officially dead. Guilherme says, do you have any assumptions of how Dwarf Fortress AI work? You know, I've had the chance to chat with the fellas over at Dwarf. Can I just say, on the whole, Dwarf Fortress Steam release, huge sales for them, great numbers. I am so happy for those guys. You know, they have continued to work so hard on that game. They've had some financial, gain from it. You know, they've been sponsored over the years, and it's fantastic. And I'm very happy for them. God, just seeing how well that's doing on Steam right now, I'm so happy for them because it's so well deserved. And also, for the publishing team as well, like absolutely fantastic. Dwarf Fortress is an episode I really need to get to at some point. And I have had the pleasure of meeting or chatting to some of the guys before who work on it. I really need to maybe take the plunge and do the Dwarf Fortress video. And I realised after I did the video on Ultima Ratio Regum, I was like, oh God, is this the beginning of the spiral to me finally doing Dwarf Fortress? I think that's one of those big ticket episodes that I really need to get around to. But currently, I don't really know how it works, which is often the reality. I seldom know how it works until I actually go and research it. But there you go. Oh God, I just realised I'm looking at the wrong chat window. No! There we go. Paul's already searching for the episodes. God, those videos are a while ago. Actually, those are from 2018, if I remember right. Because I committed to doing a 5-part Total War series at the same time I released my game on Steam, and my partner was livid with me. Like, you're an idiot. And I'm like, you're not wrong. Dr. Idiot, but you're not wrong. Cameraman is already out looking for the educational material. Fantastic. If anyone ever has questions or you're looking for it, jump in the Discord and just ping me. I'm more than happy to point to some links. There's a couple other books just off the top of my head. Where is it? That one? There's that one. And then, this one. This is a pretty good one. Two other ones just off the top of my head. If you're just interested in procedural content generation in general, I'd have a look at Procedural Generation in Game Design, which is by Tanya Short and Taryn Adams. Taryn Adams, of course, a developer on Dwarf Fortress. Some stuff from some of the episodes I've made on PCG-related topics came from that book. Really good read. Also, if you're interested in some of the more machine learning stuff in games and the more academic-y stuff, check out Artificial Intelligence in Games by Yergis Yanakakis and Julian Tegelis. That's the same Yergis Yanakakis I mentioned earlier from the Model AI video. I also interviewed Julian Tegelis for the same video series. Again, I've known those fellas for a long time now. Kind of two of the most kind of prominent figures in academic research for games, and AI for games specifically. So yeah, check that out. Okay. I think we'll maybe do one or two more and then we're going to move towards the end, because even my back's stiffening up. Packer asks probably a convoluted question. Do you think AI will advance beyond basic style gameplay that currently implemented in mainstream games, or will it just be different flavoring of the same systems? Like, I don't know, because one of the fundamental problems is it needs to be scalable and it needs to be manageable at a AAA production pipeline. And it also has to be something that, particularly when you get to high-level AAA stuff, a lot of it is tools that are being facilitated for designers and allowing designers to have the creative control of what they want. In the long run, probably. But I know there's a lot of reticence or reluctance to embrace a lot of machine learning and deep learning, and I believe for good reason, frankly, at AAA, because... And you'll notice this, I've been talking a little bit about this, and in fact, the next AI 101 episode is about how machine learning is changing game development, but critically, it's not changing character behavior, because not to the same extent as it is in other places. It's impacting game productions in different ways, like using AI for testing, and using AI for cheat detection, and using AI for animation and art. It's not being used for character behavior or machine learning, deep learning, not to the same level, because designers like to have that oversight and that control and the ability to manipulate and change things. And, you know, I remember a couple of years ago, I did the episode on how all of the behaviors in Watch Dogs 2 are powered by a giant spreadsheet. And I love that video. And the reason I did it is because that is how a lot of these things really work. So, well, it's probably an Unreal Engine. It's a data table, but it's imported from a spreadsheet probably. And getting to see these are the realities of these workflows. And it sounds archaic, but in many ways it is actually the most pragmatic approach to solving these problems. So I think that's quite fun. I think we're going to see probably smarter AI evolve over time. There was a very good talk at GDC last year, which we will make into a video about Age of Empires 4 and how they've changed their entire AI pipeline from using traditional symbolic AI to machine learning and the challenges they faced along the way. But interestingly, in order to do that, they had to work with Microsoft Research because it's not as cookie cutter. It's not as easy to just drop it in and it works. Contrary to what every deep learning enthusiast is say, we'll just drop it in the game engine, it's going to work. No, fuck off, you're talking shite. Like, this stuff it's a lot of rapid iterative development and improvement and allowing tools to facilitate designers to enable their goals. And that's a lot of this, that's a gradual process. It doesn't emerge overnight. And that's why, funnily enough, I think if you are going to see it, it is actually going to start at AAA because they've got these big teams supporting them, like EA Seed or Ubisoft La Forge or Microsoft Research, Sony AI, or it's going to be one of these AI startups that finally creates a tool that facilitates it, like, funnily enough, like Model AI, who I work for. I think it's a slow and gradual process, but it's not going to happen overnight. No, absolutely not. Okay, right. I'm going to start moving towards the wrap up. Solid Reactor says, LaForce has interesting ML animations and character expressions, but still not ready yet, but promising. Well, they've been shipping it in games for years. They use a lot of it in the Assassin's Creed games, funnily enough. In fact, the ML animation stuff, as it currently stands in the industry, which I talked about way back in the episode on Hitman, Ubisoft have been basically the publisher that have pushed that forward. With motion matching it's now called motion matching, basically. And it's Ubisoft that has made that a production thing that has now been in games now since For Honor. And it is an ongoing thing that so many high profile, in fact, the game we're going to talk about in the next episode of AI in Games also uses it, but I'm not going to talk about it in huge detail in that episode. Right. Let's go and have a look. Where am I in my slides? I need to go back to my presentation. Yeah, there we go. So let's start moving towards wrap up. And I think it's time we announce a little something. Patrons, this is all going to be boring for you. In fact, the thing we're about to show, I posted over in the Discord, in the Patreon part of the Discord server earlier today. So you know what this is. We're going to see a little bit of how things are changing next year and where I'm going with all of this. So yeah, without further ado, I guess I better go and press the button. Nope, not that one. That one. Well, two things there. First of all, hello to the new art style. We've had a bit of a facelift, and graphics are going to be changing across the board starting next month. But also, you might have noticed the one at the bottom. Please say hello to our new second channel, AI in Games Plus. Actually, if you're currently following the Smoke and Mirrors channel, we're rebranding and renaming the entire thing to AI in Games Plus starting next month. So, what does this mean? I'm not going to share with you everything that's going on, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about the changes to the structure. AI in Games is going to stay as it currently is. I am not changing anything in that regard. AI in Games will continue to be what it has always been. It is my educational project, research and applications in artificial intelligence in video games. It's getting a facelift, and our three pillars are staying. AI in Games, Design Dive, and AI 101 will continue. However, as patrons know, there's going to be two new shows coming in 2023 One of them is actually based on feedback you gave me, and the other one is the one that I've been wanting to do for years. And I'm not sharing them with you just yet. There's going to be a big announcement video next month where I go into a lot of detail. But essentially, starting in January, there are 5 different shows that are going to now appear on AI in Games. And I'm in the middle of writing the first episode or the next episode of all of them. Episode 70 of AI in Games will come out next month, and it is about The Last of Us Part 2. This is a meaty episode. It's taken me a little while to put it all together. And it's interestingly going to be about how those systems have evolved since the first game. And there's a bunch of really interesting stuff along the way. However, critically, there's also the new channel at the bottom. That's AI in Games Plus. AI in Games, like I said, AI in Games is always about being educational. It's meant to be edutainment. And I've always maintained a kind of professional stance on that to some degree. However, there's often side little videos that I'd love to make where it's, oh, what happens if I just had a look at this or messed around with this thing or experimented with this? What would happen? And so I thought, the secret to this is actually, let's just flesh out the second channel and turn it into something more proper. So like I said, going forward, Smoke and Mirrors is going to die at the end of this month, and it will officially be rebranded as AI in Games Plus. Going forward, it has its own flagship show called AI in Games Plus. And in AI in Games Plus, I essentially am going to be looking at the same topics we're looking at in the main channel, but I go into them in deeper directions and I go into different avenues. So in fact, there are 2 episodes that are going to be coming out not long after episode 70 on the main channel. There will be 2 separate videos coming out on AI in Games Plus. The first one is an analysis of how the AI in The Last of Us Part 1, which is the remake of The Last of Us, has changed as a result of the AI of The Last of Us Part 2. Because The Last of Us Part 1 is the first game rebuilt in the second game's engine, and there are actual differences in how the AI works. I went back, I played the remake, and I actually analysed and noted the differences between the two. However, there's also going to be an additional video because there's a particular thing in episode 70 that is quite complicated, and I talk a lot about it in detail, and there's one level in particular in The Last of Us Part 2 that the developers themselves used as a framework to analyse how well this new system was performing in practice. And so I'm going to be doing a live walkthrough of that level as the second video on AI in Games Plus. So AI in Games Plus, we're not going to be releasing videos every time an episode of AI in Games comes out. It's going to be a bit more dynamic where it's just, what would be good? What if we revisit an old video and analyse it from a different perspective? What if I go and do something that what happens if I go and start using like mod tools on an older game that we've already covered? How does it change the AI? So this is meant to be AI in Games retains the formal, educational, almost academic element of it. The purity of that is being retained, and the 2 new shows that are coming stick with that. However, AI in Games Plus is where we're going to have a bit more fun, and I'm going to do more dumb things. And in fact, today I just announced over in the Patreon part of the Discord server the 3 other projects. Well, this actually was one of them. There's 2 more projects coming to AI in Games Plus in 2023. And in fact, I've actually been working with other people and recording some of this and putting it together already. So the idea is that going forward, AI in Games is going to maintain its rough cadence of one video a month. You're going to see content a little more frequently on AI in Games Plus because the production framework is going to enable for that to happen. And as I'm going to discuss in the announcement video, some of the work that I'm doing is being sponsored by the folks over at Model AI who I work for. And this has been an ongoing discussion with them for a while. They wanted to support what I do, but I was critically saying, I'm going to continue to do things my way. I'm not going to become a mouthpiece for you. And that's fine. They respected that and they understood it. And I have a very good working relationship with them. We actually came together and come up with some 2 new ideas. One of them is kind of a basic new video topic or new format even, which some of you might be able to figure out. The other one is actually going to be much more interactive. And the audience on AI in Games Plus, and critically my Discord Patreon community, is going to have a huge impact on how that show evolves and changes over time. So more on that in January when it comes. But yeah, this is the first thing to expect in January when we're back. The AI of The Last of Us Part 2 and a video on The Last of Us Part 1. I won't release them on the same day. They'll come out gradually. So it might be that you get, one video one week, the other video the other week, but it's all being developed in tandem. And so yeah, AI in games will continue to have more design dive. In fact, the next episode of that is Revisiting Evil Part 4. AI 101 has also got a new episode, as I mentioned, on how machine learning is changing the games industry. And we have 2 new series. The first episode of each is in some stage of production. In fact, one of them is almost fully written. The other one is very similar to AI in games, but it's looking at a very specific thing. And so the first episode is actually a follow-up to an existing episode of AI in games in which I got to interview one of the developers on the sequel game to an existing game that we've already covered on the channel. So basically, going forward, AI in games continues to do what it does. AI in games Plus is where we're going to be a bit more silly, have a bit more fun, and push the boundaries a little bit on what we're doing. But yeah, so right now, nothing's changing, but starting in January, you're going to start noticing all the icons are going to change, all the graphics are going to change. And, as you'll notice, the new graphics, we've retained the little Space Invader dude. This was actually something, when we were going through I was going through the process of getting this done, we actually got a graphic designer to come in and do this for me. And of course, this is the first time that the channel's had a facelift in a long time. Since the current icon, which is below me right now, was actually put in. And one of the things, we actually started experimenting quite drastically with very different styles. And I realized how important this little guy is to me, this little Space Invader, because I realized this wasn't even my idea. When we actually came up with the logo, the guy that did it for me back in the day just made the little alien and I stuck with it. But ever since then, I've realized how I'm actually strangely emotionally attached to it. And so we went away and we spent weeks actually going back and forth coming up with the design that you see now. And so, yeah, I'm quite happy with it. And it looks really shiny, which is great. So yeah, going forward, starting next month, AI in Games and AI in Games Plus. In fact, you can subscribe to AI in Games Plus right now using the new YouTube handles, which is hilarious because it's currently the Smoke and Mirrors channel, but, excuse me, let me find it. Like I said, I secured the handles for all the channels. So yeah, let me post it there. That's the new channel, if you haven't subscribed to it already. So it's going to be more of Smoke and Mirrors, which is my game review series. That's going to come out more regularly. We're going to have the AI in Games Plus series. We're going to have some extra stuff as well. So it's going to be a supplementary thing where it comes out a bit more regularly. We're having a little bit more fun, but the bread and butter, what is AI in Games, isn't changing. And in fact, we're going to continue to do more of it. And so far, the feedback from the Patreon community has been very positive. They really like the sound of where we're going with this. And I'm excited to get it out to you. Let me actually say, also for patrons, because I told you everything, I didn't tell you everything. There's still a bunch of stuff that's in some early phase. There's actually there's actually another video series on both channels that are in very early production that one requires external involvement that I'm waiting to get some confirmation from. So we're waiting to see where that goes. And then the second one is just a really dumb thing that I've wanted to do for years. And I'm that close to writing the first episode of it. And I'm thinking we might do it down the line. But anyway. Yeah. So I think that's it. So I think we'll maybe take a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. Wait, 10 more minutes. And then it's 3 hours, at which point I'm sweating like a pig in this room because I really should have made some better ventilation decisions. But anyway, so I hope that's interesting. I hope you're excited. Beamer989 says, what do you think is the most influential AI in games conference? What conference do you think researchers should focus on getting published by? So that's a funny one. There is an existing academic community. So first of all, if you're in industry, there's always things like the AI Summit at GDC. There's historically been other events. There aren't any at the moment, which is a problem. I've been voicing this to other people over the years. Like we used to have Nuclei, which was previously the Game AI conference, and then we also had Game AI North, which happened for 1 year in like 2017. There's currently no European presence for the industry for Game AI, which is pretty bad. From an academic perspective, there's things like the IEEE Conference on Games, which is generally quite well known. And if you're in the games research space, that's an easy one to go and or not an easy one to publish at, but it's an easy sell, I think. There's also in the US, there is AIDA, AIIDE, which is Artificial Intelligence for Interactive Digital Entertainment. These are not very well visited. I think critically, that's the US AI Games Research Conference. Oh, no. Oh, there we go. I thought my internet conked out. AIDA, again, has a very ongoing community. It's not as big as it was, I don't think. And I think this is one of the problems, is a lot of stuff is getting published at like NeurIPS, for example, particularly with machine learning stuff. And you're probably going to get more eyeballs on it there, to be frank with you, sadly. Also, actually, Dave's kind of answering my question for me as I'm doing this. The other one is the Foundation of Digital Games. That's an academic conference that is part tech, part humanities. And so you'll have, I was going to say, also, I like how Dave put AIDA in front of COG, but then that makes sense because Dave's based over in North America. And also his brand, stuff over there too. Anyway, not going to sell you too hard. But yeah, so FDG is also a really good one because you get to meet a lot of people who work in the arts and humanities research, which I think is really interesting, and getting to interact with them. So yeah. I think critically, figure out what your research angle is. And because also, actually, one of the things that's great, oh yeah, you did do it alphabetically, Dave, fair enough. One of the things that is important is figuring out what your work is and where it fits. Like, actually, things like FDG is really good because it has a lot of workshops, like the workshop on procedural content generation runs at FDG every year. I was a chair of it at some point in my career. I can't remember when. So yeah, like those are like, it's figuring out what the research is you're doing and whether it fits in those spaces. But yeah, definitely the first three, AIDA, COG, FDG. If you're working specifically on game AI research, that seems like a given. Let's see. Actually, and in fact, actually, thinking about my own academic career, my earliest research was largely published at COG, or SIG as it used to be. It used to be Computational Intelligence in Games. And at the Conference of Computational Intelligence in Games, most of my earlier stuff was published there. And then actually at FDG, I've published maybe one or two things at AIDA, but then that was actually just down to the realities of publishing and prioritizing venues or whatever, because AIDA always runs in the US. And so it was like, I didn't know where that travel budget, because it's like, I need to be able to actually go over there and do it. So that was a different thing. Anyway, yeah, so Dave said, any AI in games videos you wanted to make but weren't able to for some reason? Several. Some of them because the information isn't accurate enough. Like, unless I have a source that I can back up and point to it and go, that's where I got that information from, I don't make the video. And I've got a lot of stuff which is like, it's not concrete enough that I can rely on it, and I need something else to ratify the source, or I don't trust the source enough. And so yeah, that's meant several episodes. Actually, Black and White is a good one that I've never made because of that issue. I've had conversations with people who worked at Monolith on Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War about doing videos on that, and were not permitted because the studio wouldn't allow us, and also patent issues. So there's legal ramifications there. There's been a couple of episodes where I've got a bit of information, but not enough to make the full episode, and I really need someone to answer a question, and I can't get anyone to speak. Also, on that note, I have sent so many emails to studios, and I just get ignored a lot, or I get a respectful decline. I talked about this on Twitter once, but I reached out to Playground Games once, asking, could we do an episode on how the sheep work in Forza Horizon 4? Because I have a very good idea of how it works, but I'd really like someone in the studio to do it. They ignored me. I reached out to Hello Games about doing a whole thing on No Man's Sky. They've never got back to me. I reached out to the developers of Hello Neighbor, because I've got some information on how the first version of the neighbor worked in the original game, but has that changed at all? But also I wanted to talk to them about how they've done it in the sequel. They never got back to me. Trying to think of an instance of a studio that respectfully declined. I'm trying to remember. Because a lot of them just ignore you, and I just never hear back. I'm trying to think. There was one or two where they were like, thanks, but no thanks. There was, it's not necessarily the studio. When I did Alien Isolation, the second video, I actually reached out to some of the developers who'd worked on the game. And they respectfully declined on the basis that, well, I don't work at the studio anymore, so it's not really my place to be talking about how the game works, which, perfectly understandable. I was pursuing that at the same time I was working with Matt Filer on using OpenCage to figure out how the game worked by cracking it open and modding it. So that wasn't that one I managed to turn around. And it's a shame because the persons involved, very lovely people, it was great to chat with them. I'd love to find a way to make it work with them, but understandably, when you no longer work at the studio, you're a bit reluctant to talk about the inner workings of the game, lest, particularly if you're in a senior position, it's not really your place. Although, funnily enough, I do have a pretty good relationship with Creative Assembly these days, that if I did want to try and ask further about a particular project, I'm actually more likely now to be able to. I think historically they're like, this guy keeps making videos about our games, and he's generally quite nice about it, and people watch them as well. But also I know several people at Creative Assembly, so that helps. Thesis says, just dropping by to say I enjoy your content a lot. Thank you very much. Thanks for producing such interesting videos over the years, and of course for the voiceover in such lovely Scottish. And this is when you find out I'm not even Scottish. Yeah, so I think that kind of sums it up. Just sometimes it's very difficult to get studios reaching it. And then it's funny because on one end I've also got some people are a little too keen to get me to make stuff about their games, and I'm like, I respectfully decline because I feel like I've had a couple of cases where studios have reached out and like, we want you to make a video in a sponsored capacity, and I was not going to get the editorial control of it in a way that I was comfortable with. This is actually what made me really annoyed at a lot of the comments I got on my Ubisoft videos, particularly the ones I did on Division 2 and Watch Dogs Legion, because it was sponsored. They actually remunerated me. I was paid for the time I spent on those videos. Excuse me. However, they were so professional about it because they said, look, we don't want to interfere with you doing the thing that you do. Within reason, we will push back on some things if we think that is going to impact our business or it's going to give away information that we don't want publicly available. But they basically let me go about it and make those videos the way I wanted. And I have a very good working relationship, and I still speak with the folks at Ubisoft periodically, and we're looking to find more ways to work together. But funnily enough, one of the great things about that relationship was I learned a lot about how to go and do that sort of thing with with studios at that AAA level on the Sea of Thieves videos. I won't get into the specifics, but the Sea of Thieves videos were difficult because of how the production was approached, and that made it difficult. And it wasn't so much that the folks that I interviewed were fantastic. In fact, the problem was that they were a bit too fantastic. And then subsequently in post-production and editing, the studio panicked a little, and we had to make some very marked changes during that review process. So that was a big challenge, and I learned a lot about how not to do this again by working on the Sea of Thieves videos. And I'm still very proud of those videos, and I huge love to Andy and Rob for having me come in. Neither of them are at the studio anymore, sadly, but I had a great time working on that project. I learned a lot about how to then do the stuff with Ubisoft, and with Ubisoft, I can count on one hand, and I'm pretty sure I've still got a few fingers spare on the number of things they said no to, and I couldn't convince them otherwise. There was actually one thing in the Watch Dogs Legion video that I fought for very hard, and I kept it in, and I'm very pleased with that. there was one or two minor things in the Division videos and one thing in the Watch Dogs video they asked me to take out. But by and large, we agreed in advance what I was going to cover and what I wanted to get out of it and what the information I wanted. And they were very supportive of letting that happen. So when I said, I want to interview people who did this and this and this. So with the Division, it was a little different because I already knew my point in contact in the studio that I wanted to deal with. With Watch Dogs, actually, I already knew Yuri Horniman, who's the last fella we interview in it, as well as I knew Liz England. I'd met Liz once, but yeah, I was like, I want to be able to talk to all these people from different places, and I want to be able to talk about different things. And I even name dropped a couple of people. I said, "Can we interview them?" And they said, "We'll make it happen." So I can't speak more highly of how that relationship with Ubisoft was, and if that was my relationship or interaction with other AAA publishers making videos, I would be beyond happy. And so, yeah, I was a little annoyed when people were like, oh God, this is just like, promoted fluff. Like, no, this is actually the video I wanted to make. Yeah. Solid Raptor said, I recently saw a streamer with 1,000 viewers playing Alien Isolation, and during the stream, both he and some viewers shared information about the AI of the games that probably came from your video. If I had a penny for every time someone dropped a fact about Alien Isolation that was probably from my video, I'd probably be doing better than I am now. But I do love that. I think that's the goal, right? That's the goal, is people going, oh, hey, did you know this? Like, I found this out from watching this Scottish guy on YouTube. Like, that's freaking awesome. And it is also nice when I just meet people who are like, oh yeah, like I learned this whole thing, and then like my friend got me watching this. Like, that's kind of weird. David Thomas says, I forgot I'd bought Watch Dogs Legion. That's my tomorrow plans sorted. It's coming out on Steam next month, which is crazy. Also, keep an eye on that, because every time Ubisoft is dropping a game on Steam at the moment, they're releasing it quite heavily discounted. Like, Assassin's Creed Valhalla was like $20 or less. I don't know. In the UK, it was £17. So it might be around $20. But critically, sadly, they're not Steam Deck compatible because they all still use the Ubisoft launcher, which is a shame, because I was looking at it going, could I play it on my Steam Deck? And then it's like, not supported. You have lost a purchase. And then you deleted it from the wish list. Not gonna lie, ever since I got my Steam Deck, any game now that's on Steam that isn't Steam Deck compliant, I'm like, nope, not interested, delete, move on. Anyway, right. Oh goodness, it's 10 o'clock. I've been officially doing this now for 3 hours. My partner has left the house to run an errand, go and see a friend, and come back in the time it has taken me to do this. Anyway, right, let's just bring it all to a close. Do I have anything else? No, that was the last slide. The last slide in the deck was showing you The Last of Us Part 2 as the next episode. We're also going to be doing, actually, we're going to go back into some academic-y stuff. I've not done as much academic-y stuff in recent months as I would like. 71 is going to be academic themed. So yeah, that has been the end of year review and Q&A. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this tonight. It's been fun. Funnily enough, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm mistaken, I'm going to have a quick double check over in the Discord, because I always used to post there. This is the first time I've streamed this year. I didn't do any live streaming in 2022. As you're going to discover, things are going to change. And in fact, I'm going to be probably on my Twitch channel a lot more regularly starting next year as part of one of the new programs you're going to see on AI and Games Plus. And critically, I need you to turn up for this. Hang on, I'm going to blow myself up. I need you to turn up for this, because critically, your input is going to influence how this show runs. Patrons have a huge input on the structure of each season of this show, but every episode, the final choice is yours. So I need you to start tuning in Twitch next year. Twitch.tv/AI and Games. So thanks all of you for joining in. Solid Raptor says, when will we hear from you next time? You're going to get an announcement video on all things that are happening on AI and Games in early January. and then you'll see episode 70 probably late January. I only just finished recording enough of AI of Last of Us Part 2 to facilitate, and Last of Us Part 1 to facilitate the video. I had to start playing Last of Us Part 2 like 2 months ago, just so I could catch up. That is a long game. It's a good game, but I don't think it needs to be as long as it is. It's a very long game. Good grief. Oh. And yeah, I need to find time to go and play Marvel Midnight Suns, or actually just try and kick my Vampire Survivors addiction. Maybe we'll make a video about that at some point. Maybe. All right. Have a good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world. I hope you all have a great holiday season, if you are so inclined, and celebrate it. And we'll see you all next year. I want you to take the very best of care with yourself, and I hope that you and your families are all doing well. Stay safe, have fun. I'll be back. I forgot, the microphone's still running. I should mute it.